It's not about today or tomorrow, but what used to be till now. When I was born, our leaders already met 16 times in the COP, and the world already knew about the bad effects of climate change. You policymakers from around the world just get here every year in these COPs and do nothing concrete for our future. Why should I come here? Why should I speak here? I have to go back to my school, I have to read my books, I have to play, I have to study. But our leaders from all our childhood life and our beautiful future. This is not fair. Our leaders are just busy blaming each other instead of finding a long-term solution. They are just telling the speech. They are not doing any action. I want our leaders to do more action. Otherwise, our future will be dying soon. They must act now. I'm only a child yet. I know all the money spent on war we spend on finding environmental answers, ending poverty and giving education, then what a wonderful place this earth would be. Millions of people are planting millions of trees to save our planet and to save our future. But some people are destroying our beautiful planet and our beautiful future. And also the hopes, the dreams of millions of children in the wars. They are losing their parents and people are becoming homeless due to wars. I'm coming all the way thousands of kilometers by rising phones to tell you elders that you must change your way of thinking. Come here today, I'm on my head agenda. I'm fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I'm here to speak for my generation and all the generations to come. I'm here to speak for the behalf of the starving children around the world who cry and go unheard. I'm here to speak for the countless animals dying on this planet because they have nowhere to go. I'm afraid to go to the sun now because there is a hole in our ozone. And I'm afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are on it. Do not forget why you are attending this program, who you are doing this for. We are your own children. What society, what kind of world we are growing up in. Parents should be able to come up for the children by saying everything going to be alright. It's not the end of the world, that we are doing the best we can. But you can't say that you're saving our planet. Are we even in your list of priorities? My dad always says are what you do, but not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night. You say love us, but I challenge you. Please make the action reflect your words. From the bottom of my heart, together with the children and youth of the world, I urge you to join your hands, your minds, and your patience to create a better world for all of us. Thank you.
And we're going to stay on the topic of climate because in the past year, a 16-year-old Swede has become the most recognizable face in the fight against global warming. But Greta Thunberg's not the only youngster calling for urgent action at the UN's climate summit in Madrid. Well, earlier today, an 8-year-old from India addressed global leaders at the event, and she had a heartfelt message after overcoming one of the obstacles that comes with being a child in an adult's world.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Here you go. I'm fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I'm here to speak for my generation and all the generations to come. I'm here to speak for the behalf of the starving children around the world who cry and go unheard.
All right, a very impressive young girl here to give us some background on this young firebrand, DW reporter Amyan Asif. Very impressive young girl there. All right, how did she end up on that stage?
Well, surprisingly, she's been involved in climate activism for over a year and a half already. So this wasn't her first time giving a speech. In fact, she gave her first speech when she was 6 years old to a climate conference in Mongolia. And after she got involved in this scene through her father, who is also involved in activism, she started attending the school protests in Delhi that were called for internationally by Greta Thunberg. So there was that inspiration there. And the media picked up her story in Delhi, and she kind of rose to prominence through that. But of course, behind every world traveler who's 8 years old, there's an adult usually, and that's her father, like I said, who's he's the chairman of the International Youth Committee for Young Activists. So he definitely helped get her where she is.
Yeah, and I understand you talked to him as well. She has been very creative in her protests. Explain.
That's right. One of the things that kind of went a little bit viral on social media was this contraption that she made. She calls it the Su Kifu. I have to look it up because it's her little word that she called it. It stands for Survival Kit for the Future. And it's basically, you can see it here, it's a gas mask, oxygen mask connected to a plant. And she made this all from trash. She calls it an invention. I maybe would refer to it as an artwork. But whatever it is, it's definitely poignant to see a young girl in Delhi, which is one of the most polluted cities in the world, struggling to get oxygen.
Right, exactly. Very, very poignant indeed.
Hi everyone, my name is Lissipriya Kanguja. I'm 11 years old. I'm an Indian climate activist and founder of the Child Movement. I'm working as the special envoy for the President of Timor-Leste, and I am fighting to save our planet and our future. I have born in Manipur, which is a small, beautiful northeastern state of India bordering with Myanmar. It's full of lush green mountains and alluring atmosphere with full of rich biodiversity. But now it's all gone. All that is left is climate hotspots now. But I have grown up in Bhubaneswar, Odisha for my schooling. You see, when I was a kid, I faced Cyclone Titli in 2018 and Cyclone Fani in 2019. And later after that, I moved to Delhi in 2019. And again, I faced the severe heat wave crisis and air pollution crisis there in Delhi. You see, when I was a kid, when I faced Cyclone Titli and Cyclone Fani in 2019 in Bhubaneswar, Odisha, I saw that many innocent people were losing their lives. Many children were losing their parents. Many homes were destroyed. There was a lot of loss and damage. And it was all in front of my eyes, And I thought that I need to take actions because you see, our leaders and our adults are doing nothing about this. Our leaders have ruined our beautiful childhood life. I thought that I could not just sit and be silent every time. I thought that I need to raise my voice so that we could have a beautiful, safe and green future for all of us, for all the children to live. And after facing all these environmental issues in my young life, it turns me into a child climate activist. The theme of this year's World Environment Day 2023 is People Action on Plastic Pollution Matters. Last year, I launched the world's first plastic money shop, where people can bring single-use plastic waste from their home and can take free rice, stationery items or a plant sapling. The mission of this project is to eliminate every single-use plastic from our planet. It also stops the single-use plastic waste from reaching our oceans, rivers, seas, lakes and landfills, etc. And after collecting all the single-use plastic waste, we again turn them into eco-friendly road tiles, house roof sheets, bricks, school benches, desks, etc. And so far, we have collected over 3,000 kgs of single-use plastic waste. And if our government can implement this idea, then it would help us to solve the global plastic pollution crisis. Last year, I visited Taj Mahal, but I was in shock to see that there was plastic pollution in and outside the Taj Mahal, which was surrounding it. So I was very sad. So I protested outside the Taj Mahal with a banner writing, "Behind the beauty of Taj Mahal is plastic pollution." And the picture gone viral in the social media. And the plastic pollution around the Taj Mahal was cleaned the next day. And the authority was fined rupees 1 lakh. So the government took immediate actions after I protested in front of the Taj Mahal. So you see, Taj Mahal has been transformed into a single-use plastic-free monument. My motivation comes from the love and support from the people. When our government and leaders try to silence my voice, it gives me more courage to fight to save our planet and our future. You see, my country, India, is facing lots of environmental issues like floods, droughts, heat waves, cyclones, locusts, air pollution, forest fire, etc. at the same time. So these are all the impact of climate change. So that's why I started Child Movement in 2018 to help us to save our planet and our future. Climate change problem is not only for me or for you or for someone else. Climate change problem is for every single person living in this world. Each and every child living in this country, living in this world, are already the victims of climate change. That's why I'm fighting to save our planet and our future. Last week, I visited the Sundarban Islands in the Bay of Bengal. The islands is submerging inside the sea due to global warming. Sundarbans has already lost 110 square kilometers of its mangrove in the last 2 decades. People living here are already the victims of climate change. Not just affecting their livelihoods, it threatens the habitats of the thousands of wildlife species here. After Cyclone Yas, more than 3,000 families were relocated to different locations from this island due to sea level rising. On this World Environment Day, I have a small message to all the people and children living in this world. Please stop using single-use plastic at your home. And please don't throw garbage or plastics at streets, oceans, rivers, seas, landfills, etc. All our little things can make a huge difference. I want to urge the rich country nations to pay for the loss and damage to the poor vulnerable countries who are vulnerable to the climate change. We want climate justice now. Today's climate crisis is caused by the rich country nations, and we are just the victims of it. We need a just transition away from coal, oil and gas, which are the top causes of today's global climate crisis. And the young people should hold the lawmakers accountable for their political decisions. There is no value of an expensive art, beautiful home, a luxurious car, or a lot of money on a dead planet. Thank you. Jai Hind, Sana Leba Manipurna, Yai. Thank you once again.
Peter, can you hear us?
I can, and hello to all of you. Good to be part of this.
Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. You need no introduction, despite for the benefit of younger audience, I would let them know. Peter Hillary is a mountaineer. There is no better person on this planet to know mountains better than him. And since one of our ecosystem is mountains and its importance towards the preservation of our ecosystems, I fished out Peter's email from internet because I was so impressed by his dad, Edmund Hillary, that when I was young, I wrote a letter to him. He was New Zealand High Commissioner in India, and it was surprising that he did write back to me, although by that time he had returned to New Zealand. And I still have that piece of letter with me. When I go back home, I'll send you a copy of that. And I fished out his email and I wrote to him, and he was so kind that he immediately responded. Despite the fact that time zones are very different and he was busy all around, he still responded and he said he will be online with us in this program. So Peter, most welcome. We are very happy to have you here. I mean, you guys are legendary people for us. It's just too unimaginable for us to be on the same platform, the same screen with you. And we also requested my ex-principal, who is a mountaineer, Dr. S.C. Biala, who might be here anytime. He is also a mountaineer, and his entire life is devoting to taking students into mountains. He's a TEDx speaker also. So because you were coming, I requested him, and he also might be joining. So welcome, Peter. It's New Zealand, 3:45 p.m., I guess.
Yes, it is. And look, thanks for having me involved in this forum. And it's wonderful what you're doing. I think it's such an important issue that we do all need to get together, even in difficult pandemic times as we're in at the moment. So this is wonderful that you're putting this program together. But perhaps just to expand a little bit on the sort of the Hillary legacy. You know, my father, Sir Edmund Hillary, along with his Indian climbing partner, Tenzing Norgay from Darjeeling, made history back in 1953 when they made the first ascent of Mount Everest. And I think it's interesting to think about, what did that mean? What did it mean climbing Everest back then? Now, back in 1953, it wasn't the way it was now, where we go, look, Everest has been climbed. Many people can climb it. You can climb it if you really have that desire and determination. Back then, they didn't know if it was possible to climb the mountain. Was it too high? Was there too little oxygen in the air for people to climb? And these were important questions because they had a lot to do with human capability. What were we capable of doing? I would suggest to you that in the beginning of the 20th century, if you'd said to people, you know, can we climb Everest? Can we go to the moon? Can we carry what we call today a mobile telephone with incredible computing power around in our pockets? They'd probably say you're dreaming. That'll never happen. So each of these steps, in a way, has liberated us about what possibilities are there for us and what can be achieved. And I think what came out of that first ascent of Mount Everest was a realization that if you have a good team, you have the right skills, you can achieve the summit of the world's highest mountain. You can go where no one has gone before. So it was an amazing moment. And I have to say, when I climbed Everest myself, I became a mountaineer and I got into Himalayan climbing. And in 1990, I finally succeeded in reaching the summit of Mount Everest myself. It was an amazing experience, but for me, it gave me an incredible insight into what Ed Hillary and Tenzing Norgay achieved in 1953, going beyond what they thought was truly possible. I think one of the great things to come out of that were partnerships, and I'm talking human partnerships, friendships. With good friendships and great partnerships, you can achieve just about anything. And I think in many ways, we've seen a lot of examples of that. For my father, the climb of Everest led on to friendships with the local Sherpa and Nepali people around the foot of Mount Everest. And over 50 years, my father built 42 schools and hospitals. He helped broker an agreement between the Nepalese authorities and the Department of Conservation in New Zealand to establish Sagarmatha National Park, so Mount Everest National Park. And that's an important part of the conservation of this incredible ecosystem. Some years later, I joined my father on an expedition using small ski-equipped aircraft to the North Pole, and we had the incredible honor of sharing this time with the astronaut Neil Armstrong, first person to land on the surface of the moon. So going to the North Pole with the first person to climb Everest and the first person to stand on the moon was pretty inspirational for a young mountaineer like me. But it was a great example of, here were people with special skills and drive who achieved things that people thought were not possible. And in a way, what we're all living through right now with this terrible COVID-19 pandemic is a time where people with special pharmacological skills have come together and developed vaccines to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we've got to get out there, we've got to distribute these vaccines, and there's still an awful lot to be done. But it's been amazing that in 1 year, these vaccines have been developed. And it's another example of when people work well together, they can achieve quite extraordinary things. But you know, we live in a time where we have to review the way we do things. And I think for all of us, we're aware of that now. I remember as a teenager, many years ago now, over 50 years ago, I was dumbfounded by the sense of how could we continue to consume materials, minerals, forests, the wonders of our planet at the rate we were with a growing population. Surely we would find ourselves in trouble. And I think it's true. It's not really that complicated, as there are more and more of us, and there is more demand on materials. There's a need for a new philosophy of how we engage with our environment. And I think to make that come true, we're going to need a new economic model to move away from consumption to an economy of durability and quality and of recycling materials. These are incredibly important things. And I think the importance of philosophy can't be overstated here. We need to look at the way we do things, and we need to look at the way we view our world and our part in it. My father, many years ago, wrote about his vision of how he saw himself in our communities. And this was interesting, I think, coming from a man who had made the first ascent of Mount Everest with Tenzing Norgay, who had established a new route across Antarctica to reach the South Pole. And yet he wrote this. And this is what he wrote in his autobiography, Nothing Ventured, Nothing Win. Each of us has to discover his own path. Of that I am sure. Some paths will be spectacular and others peaceful and quiet. Who is to say which is the most important? For me, the most rewarding moments have not always been the great moments. For what can surpass a tear on your departure, joy on your return, or a trusting hand in yours? So I think one of the great things about my father was a sense that our relationships between people were a critical part of this. We needed to cooperate, find joy in each other's company and in our accomplishments. And I think that is going to be such an important part of how we deal with the environmental crisis that we have in the world now and how we move on to address it. There is absolutely no question that we have a major issue with climate change, environmental degradation. We need to change the ways we do things. But this isn't necessarily meaning we just have to stop. We have to be innovative, come up with new ways of doing things, new innovations, new economies. This is a time of opportunity. It's true, we must address it, but it is a time of opportunity nonetheless. You know, just to finish up, I'd like to talk about in 1990, when I made my first ascent of Mount Everest, we had one of the first satellite telephones. And it was, of course, in 1990, it was a huge satellite telephone. It weighed 90 kilograms. It was patched in to a little handheld walkie-talkie, as we stood on the summit of Mount Everest. It was my first time on the top of the world's highest mountain. And a call came through that was patched through our hefty satellite telephone to the little walkie-talkie to the climbers on the summit of the mountain. And a journalist asked me a question. And I think it was a kind of a joke. He said, "How does it feel to follow in your father's footsteps?" And of course, there I am, standing on the summit of Mount Everest. But I think the reality is that those symbolic footprints, they are still out there, not just on the summit of Everest or the dusty footpaths of the Himalayas, but in the minds of people around the world. Following Ed Hillary's footprints are a lasting aspiration for all of us to try harder, go further, be more generous, because a generosity of spirit really is the greatest legacy. And that is what it will take to reverse our impacts on the environment and to address the great challenge of our time, climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. I was so moved by the words when you were speaking. It comes as if from a man whose true experience is reflected in his words and in his entire life also. Obviously, it's the question that the journalist asked you, how it feels to be following the footsteps of your father. So I also asked you whether I can mention you as Edmund Hillary's son. But obviously, when you belong to a greater personality as somebody who is known in the world, so you have to be in his shadows all your life. But it's so grateful to be in touch with someone whose name is an iconic. I mean, in India and Nepal, it's like a home, like we have posters of you in our homes. It's as loved as that. Because Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary, they are both very symbolic of your conquer on Mount Everest. Not only Mount Everest, but against the odds. And you rightly mentioned around the time that they did it, they did not have recourse to any of the gadgets. They did not have any know-how, no satellite phone, no nothing. So it wasn't as simple as it is today. Then you can go there. I've been trekking into mountains basically with school students and smaller heights. And the best I could do is the base camp of Kanchenjunga, that is 18,000 feet. And I could imagine what it means to be going up there in those circumstances. And there's one interesting piece of event in your life that I would request you to throw light on, because there are a lot of young students who have heard these names and they have read these names in the books all their life in school books, and they get to meet someone who belongs to those personalities also. Your trek to North Pole with Neil Armstrong.
Well, it was a wonderful opportunity. I was quite a young man at the time, and a very innovative and adventurous American expedition organizer put it together, and he invited my father and Neil Armstrong to join him. Also, Stephen Fawcett, and that may be a name that you're aware of. He made the first solo around the world balloon trip. And so we had an extraordinary group of people. And again, though, I say, as amazing as it was to stand there on that aviation expedition at the geographic North Pole, it really was the people that made the trip, to have the opportunity to share that time with such an extraordinary group of international explorers. And I think that's the opportunity we have to avail now. The people, the capability, the skills, the determination, the compassion to make the world a different and better place. That's what we've got to work towards. I'd like to add that, you know, India has always been a very, very special place for the Hillary family. We've always come to India for the early mountaineering expeditions, the building of schoolhouses up in the Nepalese Himalayas. All the equipment and the team would come across India, and we always received wonderful welcomes. And for all of us on my father's expeditions, the most marvelous expedition of them all, because of its cultural elements, because of the warmth of the welcome, because of the variety of adventure, was our ocean to sky jet boat expedition up the Ganges River, all the way from Ganga Sagar down in the Bay of Bengal, up the Hooghly, into the Ganga, and right across the Gangetic Plains and into the Himalayas. Really one of the most marvelous expeditions, an Indo-New Zealand expedition, and an absolutely outstanding experience. I think the hallmark of a great adventure or a great undertaking is how enduring the friendships and the partnerships are. And I can tell you that just recently I've been in touch with members of these expeditions. Captain Mohan Kohli and his son Meninda, the Banerjees in Bengal, the Tenzing family based out of Darjeeling. We're in contact with each other regularly, and it's a testament to the enduring relationships. And with strong friendships and relationships like that, you can achieve incredible things, like the summit of Everest, like getting to the South Pole, like developing a new vaccine. We can change the way the world is, look after our environment, become great stewards of our environment. We just have to have the will to make it so.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. And what else can I ask you? I mean, it's so difficult even to phrase the question for you. Today, we are wondering the devastating state of ecosystems. We know in the land of time where we stand now. Around the time that Edmund Hillary climbed Mount Everest and Neil Armstrong landed on moon, that time the advance of technology was on the rise and the advancement of human gravity also. Maybe around that time we did not realize that the advancement of science or maybe advancement of humankind will land us into such great trouble that we start eating at our own environment. And today it is said that the generation that we belong to or you belong to have destroyed this planet for the future generations to come, the younger generation. But I keep on telling them also that around the time that it happened in 80s, 90s, 70s, we did things, but maybe we were not aware of the consequences. We also did not have much control over how to stop it or how to reverse it. Only in later years we learned it, around 2000 or 2005. Around that time, 2 decades back, we learned the consequences. It took us time to sink in these consequences of what is happening around. It almost took a decade before we realized that this climate change is happening and it's going to be very, very bad for us. And then things have moved very bad at a great speed. The deterioration has set in. It has come faster at us than we can imagine. And now within these 2 decades, we're standing at a point of time that we cannot go back. We cannot reverse anything. All we can do is move forward and move very fast in order to reverse some of the damages that we have caused. Otherwise, in next 10 years or 20 years, we'll have no recourse but to meet our ends in a very bad hand of nature. And that is why this decade of restoration that has been launched by UNEP, possibly in our lifetime, is the last big effort in order to restore our planet. And that can only happen when we stop eating at our own environment, reverse some of the things that has been done, because we cannot undo time. We cannot go back into time. We cannot turn back time. We can only move forward. So what I like to ask you is, after I show you a small theme song for this month, it's been couched around the same thoughts, the decade of restoration, and the thought that we cannot turn back time, but we can always turn some initiatives we can do and act straight away now, then we can be in a happy situation 10 years later on.
Good morning, Mr. Peter. This is morning here in India. So I just want to know something from you, maybe that is very important for this generation. Your father, he has lived a life, his whole life he has built and lived a legacy. How difficult it was for you to carry that legacy further?
Well, look, the thing is, there was a lot to be very proud of with my father. He also engaged his family. So as small children, we accompanied him. We visited Darjeeling and Tenzing Norgay back in 1962 when I was just 7 years old, and we went to Kathmandu. We went up into the Himalayas a bit later on and helped him build his first school and first hospital up there. So he engaged with us. And I think that sharing made it very easy for me not only to feel proud of him, but to feel included in what he did. And as I grow older now, I know that I will always be the son of Ed Hillary, but I'm very happy with that. I mean, I'm very honored to be his son, to have shared those wonderful times together. So at the end of the day, it's what you make out of it yourself that's important, how you build on the opportunities you've been given. So the opportunities I was given by my remarkable father and my mother to assist other people, to raise my own family, to run my own businesses, you know, that's what I've got to focus on. So it's really, we stand on the shoulders of the people who go before us. And you can either do that with a smile on your face and thankfulness in your heart, and that's the way I feel, or perhaps you can have more complicated emotions. I think one of the challenges of our modern society is the growth in this idea of absolute individualism. And there are some positives about that. But, you know, we humans, we're sort of gregarious, community living, family orientated beings, and we mustn't lose touch with that. That's an important part of how we're going to deal with the environmental crisis and the climate crisis that's ahead of us. Because by engaging with each other, we're going to want the best for our own group, but for other people as well.
Thank you so much. Rajiv, sir, just one more question, you know, if you allow.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Mr. Peter, you know, was there any such instance in your life wherein you found that there was a generation gap between you and your father? Because this is something that is widening, you know, generation after generation. The gap is widening. So was there any instance wherein you felt that, no, there is a generation gap between me and him?
Oh, look, I mean, absolutely. There was, you know, there was obviously a generation gap between me and my father. I mean, he was a product of, you know, he was born in 1919, just after the First World War. And that was still a period of, you know, the British Empire and these sort of great European cliques that dominated many parts of the world. That's what he was born into, and there was this period of change during their lifetime. Whereas I was born after the Second World War in the mid-1950s, and that was a time of where people are starting to realize sort of individual potential, that we could be a lot freer than we'd been before in our thoughts and our actions. And obviously, as the 60s and 70s came along, this was an era of greater freedoms of expression and of thoughts in many countries around the world. So obviously, there were differences between my father and I in terms of the generation. But, you know, one of the great strengths of my father, Ed Hillary, was that he reinvented himself throughout his life. He actually learned as time went by, there were different ways of going about things, such as the rise of the power of women, and he supported that absolutely, even though he was born in a time when I don't think that was a universally acknowledged situation. He absolutely supported it all his life. And I think he stayed in touch with younger generations. And I think the question is, and in a way it's the challenge we have ahead of us, can we change the way we see things and act on things? Because we have to do that. We can't stay stuck in the generation in which we were born. We have to have open minds and open hearts to a new way of doing things. And that is going to require older generations to get in tune with the younger generation. I have 4 children. Of course, they're tech savvy. They use computers and all sorts of different apps, and I don't know how to use half of them. but I acknowledge them for the importance that they are, these technologies, and they help me to use them too, which is important. So that's a collaboration between generations. It's the only way we can move forward, I think.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, so much. I'm just looking for if any students have any questions. JK,
Yes,
sir,
I
do you have
have.
any students? Yes, can we bring Pawnee on the screen? Okay. Yes, Pawnee, please introduce yourself and then ask your question to Peter.
Okay, good morning, sir, because it's 9:43 a.m. here in India, and I'm Pavni, and I'm very happy and grateful that you came here to this event. So, first of all, sir, let me introduce myself. I'm Pavni, and I'm working with ACT now I'm working with Environmental Online, which is also an associate organization since class 2, and I'm working with ACT now too. So, as you were talking about your father and you were talking about yourself after the World War II, so do you find any type of difference in the mountains? Because yes, there has been different in the development in the countries and in the urban areas. But if you could right now, mountaineer any mountain, would you find any type of difference?
Well, look, you do. And I mean, it's very clear, even in my lifetime, say over the last 50 years of going to the Himalayas, going to the Southern Alps in New Zealand, you see enormous change. When I first started climbing, for example, in the Mount Cook region of New Zealand, we have huge glaciers going up onto the highest peak of the country. There were no great glacial lakes near the terminus of the glacier. Now, the lakes are so large you can sail a boat on. There are icebergs floating around. People go kayaking on them. And this is a recent occurrence. We also see this in the Himalayas with glacial lake outbursts. You know, as the glaciers are receding, you get more glacial lakes, which are very unstable mountain lakes. If you get an earthquake or a big collapse in the glacier, it can cause these to rupture their banks, and these are becoming more common. So we are seeing very dramatic examples in recent times up there in the mountains, and I think the mountains are really great examples of how this change is occurring and why we need to act now.
Thank you, sir. I feel very I agree with you, because there has been a lot of changes in both the climate and the way we are treating things. So I definitely feel we should act now, but let's see when COVID gets over so we can do something just out of virtually also.
Yes.
Welcome back, Akshay. Do you have a question for sir?
Yes,
All
sir.
right, well,
So, awesome morning, Peter, sir. So, first of all, it's a privilege to meet you here. So, I have a question for you that if one day the environment could speak to us, what do you think it would tell us?
oh, that's an interesting question. What do I think the environment can tell us? You know, to a certain extent, I think very simply, the environment would just say, leave us alone. And you might go, what do I mean by that? Well, you know, the trouble is that humanity for thousands of years has basically taken the environment for granted. We really have had an attitude of pillaging the environment, taking its resources. It could be timber, it could be animals, it could be herbs and spices, but we take and we don't give anything back. And recently I've been working on ships down in Antarctica, and we go to a little island called South Georgia Island, which is down on the edge of the Southern Ocean, near the edge of the South Atlantic. And this island, over the last 200 years, was plundered by various groups of people for its whales, for its seals, and for the penguins and the penguin eggs. They devastated the environment. And in 1960, all of the whales were gone, the seals were gone, the penguin rookeries were badly damaged, and the island was infested with rats and with introduced Norwegian reindeer. Over the last 50 years, humanity has left South Georgia alone, and it's started to heal itself. It's been getting a little help from humanity, which is a nice change. Human beings have gone there, some New Zealand helicopter pilots and their British supporters, and they've eliminated all of the infestation of rats on the island. The reindeer have been removed, and now the island is flourishing like it was 100, 200, 300 years ago. The biggest problem we have visiting South Georgia today is finding a place on the beach to land our inflatable raft, because there are hundreds of thousands of penguins and albatrosses, of elephant seals and fur seals. It is a wondrous, wondrous sight. But the most important thing we did was leave nature alone. Let it come back. So we need to make sure we have some preserves where nature can return. They need to be extensive, but if we let nature do what nature knows best, nature can come back.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I relate to it because I have written the book on the island, Era's The Invisible Island. It's a fictional story actually, so I can relate a little bit to it because it's also about saving that island. So I took my share of learning, sir. That was a great explanation you gave me. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you. And I'm very impressed you've written a book as a very young person, but that's absolutely outstanding. And I think your topic of an island is, it's a great one. It's a microcosm of existence, and it's a good way of understanding this problem and how we can come to some solutions. So well done. The world will be in better hands if we have very young people like you coming up. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Last question to you, Peter. Last question. Yes, Hashmeet.
Yes, sir. Awesome morning, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. So first of all, it's great to see you here in this event. And my name is Hashmeet Kaur, and I'm from Brookfield International School. So my question is, as we all know that the Chandigarh is the most cleanest city in India, but how we can help other cities to reach up to the similar level?
Well, look, I think one of the most important ways of helping other people see solutions to things is a good example. And so if your city has got systems for clearing up rubbish, you know, for good sewerage, for maintaining an orderly city, but also people have an attitude that reinforces that type of behavior. That is infectious. You know, other people will see it and go, this is the right way to go around it. So I think you keep doing what you do well in your city and encourage others to follow you, because obviously your environment will be so much more pleasurable than somewhere else that perhaps doesn't have the trees and the parks and the open spaces that you must have.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for answering my question. That was great.
Thank you, Hashmi. Well,
Peter,
thank you for listening.
I'm sure this interaction with the students will have a great impact on their lives and the way they want to move forward in their life. That is the purpose of this event also. We try to influence and bring these young minds and the issues that is confronting us. Because we have realized that so far we have failed to make any great impacts on the kind of damages we have made. Its only hope is that we come all together, younger generation and the generation that is us, and we start doing things now. Even small acts will matter, and ultimately we should be able to conquer our problem just like Ed Hillary did Mount Everest way back.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much, Rajiv, and I wish you all the best with the rest of this forum. It's a great initiative.
We have with us today the legendary Mr. Matthew Spaganagel from San Francisco. Matthew, sir, is a co-creator from the Ecological Footprint and president of Global Footprint Network, recipient of World Sustainability Award in 2018 and Blue Planet in 2013, and many, many more. Welcome, sir, and thank you for taking your time for Act Now and the Peace is Green event. We've had a lovely conversation last year, and I hope to continue it. Sir, the first question is a very dicey yet simple question that in about 4 decades, Earth Overshoot Day has only indicated that all of the progress is hollow. We have moved back almost 3 months. Is there any hope for future? And if there is, do you think there has been any change?
Of course, we could have a fantastic future. The question is whether we want to choose it. So we measure just every year how much humanity uses compared to how much Earth can renew. So last year in 2020, between January 1st and August 22nd, we used as much as Earth can renew. And that was later than in 2019 because of COVID. The economy slowed down, we didn't consume as much, resource consumption went down. And so particularly in the first part of 2020, it went down quite a bit. So in 2019, Earth Overshoot Day was on July 29th. And this year in 2021, it's kind of a tough story that even though we had COVID and we suffered so much and people couldn't do everything they wanted to do, and we had human suffering as well, at the same time, resource consumption went up again. And now in 2021, Earth Overshoot Day is as early as it was in 2019. And that's really kind of a little bit shocking for us because we thought we would have gained something, but somehow many of the gains we've lost again. So that's a bit of a problem. And so what can we say? The overall consumption actually is still a bit lower than in 2019, which in some ways is a good thing, but also biocapacity has been lower. So we lost on the biocapacity side, and consumption is a little bit lower. So overall, the ratio is about the same. But that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story, because we can choose the future that we want. And so what we will do is, starting on Earth Overshoot Day, we will celebrate 100 days of possibility. And what we mean by that is that there's so many great things happening in the world. We just want to highlight some that we know of and show this is actually available. We could do so much better if we want to. We don't have to wait. Of course, there could be improvements in the future, but with all the great things we already have, we could do so much better. For example, bicycling more. I'm bicycling here. You can even see I have a trailer. Can you see the trailer in the back here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I can go shopping. I'll go shopping with my bicycle. I can go anywhere with my bicycle. I love my bicycle.
So would you rather say that Corona right now, the COVID, whatever they call it, so it can be just another means for nature to fight, maybe because we have been so cruel to it?
I mean, on some ways, it doesn't have as direct an intention, obviously. But in any ecosystem, there's a noisy motorcycle now. But in any ecosystem, if there's imbalance, the ecosystem tries to establish balance again. Yes, I mean, by overusing ecosystems, then things happen that the resources may go down, more diseases may spread, etc. So COVID is a bit of a sign of imbalance, but we also could do much better. I think what COVID also teaches us is that we are actually biological. We are biological beings. And by being biological beings, we belong to ecosystems and we are connected with each other. And by recognizing that we are biological, I think we start to recognize that taking care of our resources is really in our direct self-interest. There's no downside to it, because we often forget that. Many of us live in cities, and we forget how much we are connected to the ecological resources around us. Like Switzerland, for example, where I come from, uses 4.5 Switzerlands to support itself, but people don't realize that much because we live in cities and things are just available in the supermarket, so we forget how dependent we are on the planet.
That is one question from my side. 5th June, UNEP is launching this decade of restoration for 10 years.
Absolutely.
Do you think it's a great initiative, late, but maybe in time?
It's one of the big things we can do. We call it how to move the date. We use the hand. I should show the hand. Move the date. I just stop to show my hand. So the thumb shows how much we have, how much land we have. That's the restoration part. If we are more careful with our ecosystems, they can be healthier and more resilient, produce more. So that's really important. That's kind of the decade of restoration. At the same time, the other 4 fingers point towards how we can reduce our demand. So the first one is, how do we organize our cities? How do we build our houses? How dependent are we on cars and all these kind of things? The way we organize our cities and our buildings and everything is a huge factor. The second factor is, how do we power ourselves? Do we power ourselves with coal power or with solar power? It makes a big difference. And then how do we feed ourselves? About half the Earth's capacity already is occupied for producing food for people. And then the last one is how many we are. Obviously, if we are twice as many people, there's only half as much planet per person. So all these factors play a role together and determine eventually how well we can live on this planet.
So, sir, for the benefit of younger audience and the generation who will be watching our program, could you tell us a bit about the ecological footprint and the global footprint?
Yes. We started Global Footprint Network because we recognized that the really limiting factor, the bottleneck for humanity, but materially speaking, is not how much oil is underground, because there's a lot of it, but actually in the end, how much Earth can regenerate. And that also is, we compete for that. So we use that for food. So food is being regenerated, carrots and potatoes and cauliflower and all kinds of things, and grass for the animals. And then we also use regeneration to absorb the excess CO2 as we burn fossil fuels. We also use area that could be used for regeneration to build cities, which then also doesn't allow us to produce potatoes. So all these things compete for the Earth's ability to renew itself, or to regenerate, as we'd say. And so that's why we use that as the lens to look at the world, our glasses to look at the world, saying, wow, how much regeneration is needed for everything we do. And so we can compare that with also how much regeneration is available on the planet. And that happens on surfaces. So that's why the currency that we use, like a money currency, the currency that we use is actually a hectare that is adjusted. We call them global hectares. That means that average productive hectare becomes the reference. And so we can translate everything, like a whole country, like Switzerland, into how much productivity is in Switzerland, and express that in global hectares. And then we can compare that with how much should the Swiss consume, for example. So, and then you could say, how many Switzerlands does it take to support Switzerland? How many Indias does it take to support India? How many worlds, how many planet Earths does it take to support the world? So that's what we do. We do like accounting. Why is accounting important? It's like with money. If you just spend money and you have no idea how much you earn and how much you spend, it's quite dangerous, because you could easily run out of money, and that's dangerous. But if we do it with accounting, and you know more or less how your money situation is, then you can be safe. The same thing is with resources. If we just spend nilly-willy, wow, so much, then we don't actually understand how much being regrown. We can easily go ecologically bankrupt. That wouldn't be pretty. And actually, we are overspending. So it's possible to overspend because Earth is so rich, we can spend down some of its assets, like this deforestation. We can deplete soils. We can accumulate CO2 in the atmosphere. These are all ecological debts that we're accumulating, but we cannot do it forever. So for sure, what we know is there will be a regenerative future. The question is only how quickly do we get there? If we get there very, very slowly, then in the meantime, we'll have more climate change that will destroy more of the regeneration capacity. So that means there will be less ecological budget for us humans. But of course, also we could go faster, which takes perhaps a little bit more effort in the short run, but it protects more of the regenerations. That means we'll be left with more regeneration and we can live well. But eventually, there's nothing else to live from. We cannot always live off depletion. So eventually, we have to live off regeneration. So we think it's wiser to do it faster, because then also more budget is left. That's essentially our proposal. And the other proposal is to say, I think there's a misunderstanding. People think, yeah, we should be nice to the earth. But that somehow sounds like, wow, I have to make an effort and all the benefits go to the others. I'm not willing to do that much because all the efforts go somewhere else. But in reality, it's also important for me to be able to be sustainable, because what's happening is we're moving into a world where there will be more climate change and there will be more resource constraints. It's like a storm coming up on the horizon. And if a storm is coming on the horizon and you sit in a boat, you won't say, oh, I will not fix my boat. I will wait till everybody else is fixing their boat, and then maybe I will focus. So we have to make agreements on who is fixing their boat first. That's ridiculous. So you just have everybody, like, it's in their interest to kind of say, wow, can I get my boat ready? Maybe we can help each other too, fixing the boats. But certainly waiting for the others to fix their boat first, that's so absurd. And that's somehow how we're stuck mentally, that we think, wow, let's wait for the others. That's strange.
Okay, that is one question from my side. I mean, in last 1 decade at least, there has been a huge amount of effort from United Nations to the willing countries to NGOs, individuals, youth, everything. Despite all these efforts, the date is still shifting. It's not stopping there. It's still moving forward. I mean, we are consuming resources faster than we used to do before that. So do you think it is because of lack of or rising populations? Or what could be the reason behind that? How to stop it or slow it down considerably?
Yeah, I mean, the world is like a big, massive ship that doesn't shift that quickly. And what is even, I think, more concerning, many don't think it's necessary to shift, or at least not necessary for them. They say, oh yeah, maybe it would be good for the world, but why me? And that's the big misconception. I live in a city called Oakland, and we are very concerned about climate. But in a funny way, most people say, oh, we have to be nice to the planet. Rather than saying, why is Oakland destroying Oakland? If we said that, we would be far more radical and say, wow, we cannot afford to do anything that doesn't make us safer in the future. And that would kind of then say, this is actually the economic priority number one, is to make sure that everything we do, all the investments we do, are aligned with the future that we want. So it's not just something nice that we do on Sunday afternoons. And I think that's kind of the biggest shift that is still needed. When we look at economic policies, I'm sure, I don't know how it is in India, or if you look at the World Economic Forum, the competitiveness studies, they just lack any physical dimension. They do kind of as if the economy was a separate thing. But we cannot be successful without it. We just produce actually a paper that in Nature Sustainability, and that's been actually quite well picked up. I'm quite happy about that. But still, I mean, it's just kind of contrasting this. Most of the development efforts still think we just have to generate more money and everything will be fine. But the reality is that 72% of the world population now, 72%, live in countries that have both an ecological deficit. That means their consumption now, it already exceeds what their own ecosystems can renew. And they don't have the resources. I mean, you can overuse them for some time, but not forever. And they have less than world average income. That means on the global markets, they will not be able to outcompete others to get the extra resources. So they don't have the resources themselves, and they don't have the financial abilities to get it from somewhere else. So therefore, therefore not focusing on resource security as the foundation to make sure is just insanity from my perspective. And that's kind of, if you look at development models and how we think countries need to develop, how international institutions about development talk about international development, talk about priorities, it seems to me we haven't recognized yet fully how central the environment is, a healthy environment, resource security, however we call it, to making prosperity last. Otherwise, anything else, from my perspective, would be anti-poor. If we are not taking care of ecosystems and of ecological integrity, and that we have enough ecological capacity to support the demand that we have, it's really anti-poor, because those with least financial resources, they will be even most put at risk, obviously. But also the cities. I mean, we build cities nilly-willy, left and right, and we have the resources to support them. So if you construct things that it's like building bigger and bigger kitchens and not wondering like, will there be enough flour to come to the kitchen? You know, or I want to make bigger cakes, but is it a flour in the pantry to make the cakes? You know, or oh, we want to fly further and further. We don't want to have a fuel gauge. But what if you don't have the fuel? What good is the plane if you don't have the fuel to fly the plane? You know, so I mean, it's an analogy, obviously, but that's kind of the surprise that we have divorced. We have separated what we think is economic activities from the physical inputs that are needed to make them work. And so, but we still use them, just not in a wise way. And so we deplete our ability to have great futures.
Okay,
I haven't fully answered.
Okay.
I've already answered why is it, but I think it's still the mindset that we don't think it's important enough, because we could. The technologies exist. That's why we do 100 days of possibilities. There's so many examples what we can do if we wanted to. Maybe that what's limiting us most is that we continue to use the word should, because when we say should, we should do this, we should do that. What we actually say is it's not going to happen because it should. It's better to use the word I want. You know, I want this. I want this. I want to live in a city that doesn't need cars. That would be great. That's what I want. If I say, oh, we shouldn't have cars, then nothing happens.
Okay, Mathis, if you remember our last conversation, we drew an example from a mobile battery. Everybody owns a mobile phone, and the moment the battery depletes to 40%, 30%, we are immediately concerned. We know we have to recharge it, otherwise we are out of communication. That same thing doesn't happen with Earth resources. You have every single data on your website, every country-wise, and what resources are there and how they have been consumed. And maybe it is rather crude way to put it, but I don't think there's any other way to put it, any other way. How do you think, if people in general nature, they do not do anything until it hits them personally? It impacts them individually. Even in Corona times, they wouldn't wear a mask, but if somebody fell sick in the family or in immediate neighborhood, or there was something in the newspapers locally, they would immediately switch to wearing masks. So this ecological balancing, how, unless it hits or the people individually realize is hitting them directly, I don't think there'll be concrete actions. As you said just before, that it should and not I am doing this or I want this. So what is the mechanism you think that can be? I mean, is there any way we can make it known that these impacts are known, reaches individuals? So there is going to be concrete action on the part of the individual, and we know that as countries, as governments, we can do a lot. But until individually people begin to feel responsible for things, they start taking actions, no matter how small it is, things won't change.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I find it very interesting. Like, I don't know if that's kosher to say, but we suffer from a colonial heritage that after World War II, when the colonial empire started to crumble finally, the colonialists felt very sheepish about it. And want to say, oh, we didn't come to exploit you. We wanted to bring civilization. Like, it's called the white man's burden. You know, it was just out of the goodness of our heart. We want to bring schools and railways to the world because that's what the world needed. And so the response kind of to hide that guilt that is still not discussed, the whole resource equation was taken out of economic development theory. So post World War II, resources have disappeared from the way we think about economics. And so that's this colonial burden. And then we say, oh, we can always get it from somewhere else. So that's kind of in some ways a colonial thought. We just get it from somewhere else. Now there's one big culture that has built its own thinking that wasn't influenced by these colonial institutions, because still, like if you look at the leading universities, they come from these colonial places, and the ministers from South America, for example, they still go to Harvard and Chicago to learn about economic theory in the colonial mind frame. So another culture is China. I spoke with a young person who went to China to school. What did they learn there? In geography, they say resources are really important. They're really important and we need to look after them. And before we use our resources, let's use other places' resources. And I think, I mean, it may sound very crude, but on some level, I find that very healthy. Because if you think resources are so important that you need to look after them and rather use other people's resources than yours, if every country did that, we all would look after our resources. We would all be in a much more secure situation. But we are still we still have the colonial disease that we think we can always get from somewhere else, that we shouldn't talk about resources just because we just rob others. And that leads to this crazy race where we just race for depletion. And it's insane. And so I think that's it's part of that same legacy. So the question of social justice and ecological integrity is very much interlinked. And the Chinese, because they didn't have they kind of had to fight this colonial pressure and were able to maintain their own culture through that, have just thought about it quite differently.
As you already know, the ACT now is conducting a second conference or a second edition of the same conference, which lasts for 24 hours. So do you think these conferences are good for nature and for the people?
I mean, absolutely. It's what we talk about, that's kind of in our presence, so the more we focus on what was important and talk about these things, the more likelihood there is that there will be attention. And I'm particularly thrilled it's kind of a network of young people say we want to decide what we want and gaining their voice. And so it's kind of learning how to talk about it and connect with each other and help each other and say, that's our agenda, that's what we want. And so that's how you build the muscle to say, I want this. And that's how we build the muscle to invite others and say, we need to do it together, help us. And so it's great to build these networks and invite people in. So fantastic. I mean, it's not the end in itself. It's a necessary thing to talk with each other. And then we also have to do things.
So thank you again so much. And thank you, Pawnee, for being here today. And we hope to see you again soon enough. I'll be in touch through the email.
Thank you. Be well. Congratulations and have a wonderful event.
I live in Europe, and you are free to guess my country.
Somebody saying Australia.
Hi, mate.
Canada, Germany.
I'm Koen Tummis. I teach web design in Hasselt in Belgium. During the past 15 years, I've been teaching web design. I enjoyed teaching my students in Belgium, but I wanted to make learning global. I wanted to reach more children. I wanted to connect children around the world. The Climate Action Project is a 4-week learning program which I created, which allows students from around the world to focus on climate change in their country and then share their findings using videos on my website.
We are from Cilegon in Indonesia.
We need to start to invest in our environment.
250 schools across 6 different continents signed up for the project.
I'm Innocent, and today I'm going to tell you about Ivory Coast.
When Koen contacted me to join the Climate Action Project, I was really excited because it means a lot of learning possibilities for the students, but also for me as a teacher. People from different nationalities and different cultures in my class, they see that they face the same problems and they can look together for solutions.
Dus gooi geen afval weg in de oceaan. An idea from one of our students.
Don't use cars anymore.
I think that Koen is an amazing person and he's not afraid to implement new ideas. He's really doing it with his heart.
By connecting students around the world, I hope that they will be inspired by each other, most of all, enjoy learning. I was connected to an outreach assistant in the Kakuma refugee camp using Skype, and that call really changed my life. When I noticed the situation in the camp, I realized that I had so much more to offer than just money, because that I was able to help some refugees by offering free education. They basically didn't have computer devices or even a power supply. So I had to arrange my own infrastructure in the camp. I sent my private laptop and I started teaching the refugees on a weekly basis.
And do you know any famous soccer players of Belgium? Hazard. Hazard, yes.
Thanks to a crowdfunding campaign, I was able to send a solar panel and an additional 20 devices. And we are now able to offer free education using Skype. So today, we'll take a closer look to the human body. How many bones do you think we have inside our body?
Yeah, 9 bones.
The lesson on the Skype, I like it because today I've heard that in my body I have 206 bones. I like Teacher Kion because I have learned much and more from him.
I know for sure that education is key in life. And I really hope that the lessons are creating some impact and will offer them new opportunities in their future lives.
Last week, I shared with my students that I never want to win the lottery. Earning my salary by giving them new insights gives me a certain satisfaction. I may have found another way which gives me even a feeling which goes beyond that satisfaction. And maybe that will work for you as well. 5 years ago, I was invited to a conference by Microsoft about education and technology. Usually those conferences take 3 days, they have multiple speakers, and they tend to be pretty bad for your diet. But one of those sessions was atypical and had a very strange name, which was Kakuma. During that session, we had a Skype call with Moses, who is a consultant at the Kakuma refugee camp. The Kakuma refugee camp is based in Kenya, houses 200,000 refugees who fled from war and hunger in Sudan, Somalia, Burundi, to name a few. 55% of all refugees are children. This year only 5,000 young people arrived in the camp with no relatives at all. In 2015, the camp had 50 different schools with classrooms typically housing up to 200 refugees with no access to textbooks nor any other educational resources. Only 1 in 3 teachers is certified to teach. And while many people are born in the camp, most people will be living in the camp for the rest of their lives. Some people, those who are really highly educated, they may have the best shot to be sent to another continent, to live a new life. And for them, it's like winning the lottery. Now, being a teacher myself for 15 years, during that session, I promised Moses to help him to increase the level of education in the camp by teaching the refugees through Skype. Back home, I started to read about the camp, and I started to realize I was quite naive because the Kakuma schools don't have Skype, computers, not even electricity. But I made a certain promise and I decided to make it happen. And so I shipped my own laptop to the camp, and the local NGO was kind enough to share their internet connection. I started to teach the refugees in my own kitchen, science, English, math, and they really loved it. But one single teacher trying to reach thousands of refugees, that really doesn't make any sense. So I invited other people through social media to join the project. And many people responded positively. We had our first community after a few months with more than 100 teachers across 45 different countries, willing to do more than teaching their own students. Then the laptop disappeared. And mysteriously enough, the local NGO lost interest to share internet as well. I had a very important decision to make. And leaving it like that or starting all over again from scratch. At that time, Belgian architects picked up the story in a newspaper. They reached out to me, and together we decided to build a school, our own school, in the Kakuma camp. After chasing some funding, we were able to equip that school with solar panels. We had laptops, even 2 refugees dedicated to the project. This was last year. We now had our own learning hub, and we were able to scale up to reach more people, more teachers and students. United Nations became an official partner. The World Economic Forum called it one of the top schools in the world, pioneering the future of education. A Hollywood crew even came over to cover the project by creating a Netflix documentary. Now, many people love this story because we are offering a free education to some of the poorest people on earth. But there was an unexpected side effect. Turned out we were doing more than teaching refugees. Allow me to explain through this model. At the left side, we have the Kakuma students. At the other side, we have students from every corner of the world. Let's call them the global students. And the idea was offering knowledge through a virtual interaction. But Kakuma students turned out to give something back, which was potentially even more valuable. They talk about their dreadful lives and still they smile from ear to ear. They share their passion for football and don't complain while mentioning that they only have food once a day. They share an authentic view into their lives. And through those intercultural exchanges, we noticed that the mindset of the global students began to change. Because during those calls, they began to appreciate each other. And this became our unique way to fight a global threat called polarization. Turned out that this blue arrow was the cherry on the top. Now, I have a question for you. What if this model can be replicated, can be used to scale up to tackle other global issues? An issue I personally feel is affecting all of us. Something what's urgent. Everybody's speaking about it, especially young people. Climate change. I decided to launch a new project, this time with groups of students in every continent. We asked them to focus on the causes and effects of climate change. We asked them to create small videos with their findings to be uploaded to the website by their teachers. This way, students were able to learn from each other in very authentic ways. In Australia, students reported that their country is suffering from bushfires. In Ireland, the students mentioned that their schools were closed for the very first time in history due to hurricanes. In Sierra Leone, a teacher's house was partly destroyed due to mud flows. We also asked those students to have live virtual interactions, to share their concerns, those findings. And we had our first arrow, knowledge. But we soon discovered that the students were willing to do more. American students, they developed a solar suitcase, which has a battery and solar panels. They shipped it to the Kakuma refugee camp, where now one school has free electricity. Irish students, they focused on the waste management symbols. They noticed that they were inconsistent. They invited their Minister for Climate Change to come to their school and requested a new symbol. This way, they brought national change and even later received a letter from their president congratulating on what they did. Portuguese students created a waste machine, something what recycles plastic waste. They shipped this machine to Mozambique, where now people are able to recycle 9 tons of plastic waste and turn it into new objects, barrels and cutlery, bricks, tiles, providing 4 people of a salary. And this teacher from Malawi, his name is Andrews. I know him personally. I met him at a conference in Dubai, though, and we started to chat, and he told me, like, my students planted trees to save a lake in Malawi. Now, the thing with those conferences is that you get to speak with people from the UK, from Ireland, India, Africa, and they all have different accents. So when I asked him, like, how many trees did they plant, I thought he was saying 60,000 trees. I was already impressed, you know. But turned out that he was saying 60 million trees. How about that? Isn't that extraordinary? We have hundreds of those kind of stories. We noticed that the students went beyond learning about climate change. They didn't go on a street, start yelling. No, they came with solutions. They enjoyed going the extra mile by finding meaningful ways to take action for a green planet. After watching their videos with their findings, we noticed that their behavior started to change, their mindset. Again, we had our blue arrow. The project started to grow, became more structured. Those teachers who have been there from the very beginning, they were called ambassadors. They were the ones who helped the project to grow. They reached out to press and presidents. Last year, we had 2.5 million participants. Our community reached out to ministries of education in 15 different countries. We co-authored a book with WWF, translated this and made it available in 15 different languages in one single week. Rick Davis from NASA, he reached out to me and offered to send our students messages of hope to Mars. The project was endorsed by Jane Goodall, Queen Elizabeth, and Dalai Lama. But the true heroes are the students. They proved that they have the capacity to do more than learning about climate change. They have the potential to come up with solutions and take action. Now, great story, but why would you care, right? What What if this model would work for you in your personal life? Let me share an example from my life. Last month, my son Mauro came to me and he was like, "Dad, what you doing?" And then I told him, like, "I'm reading a book about plastic, and did you know that 80% of all tap water on a global scale has small, tiny, little plastic fibers, microplastics?" He was instantly interested. He took his own laptop and started to read about it. Now he is 9, and at his school, they have to do 3 presentations this year. And he did one on plastics and how to create your own bioplastic with milk and vinegar. Now, because of him, not me, his friend's mindset and behavior may have started to change. This model can be applied to your life too, even in a broader context, in your own environment and not necessarily with young people. You can be one of those dots too. To do so, you start interacting with people like friends, family, neighbors, even CEOs or government leaders. You can be the change too. Let's take a closer look at some common things which may happen in your life. Maybe you've been watching a Netflix series about poverty lately. Or maybe you read an article about deforestation in Brazil. Or maybe you've been really irritated about spotting fake news on social media. It doesn't have to end there. Let's take a closer look at how a mutual exchange of mindset and knowledge can lead to a greater whole. Maybe you can try to find out how to support a local food bank. Or maybe you can reach out to your boss and ultimately decide to start a tree planting with the whole office. Or you can explain to your niece and your nephew the importance of critical thinking and how fake news can be a threat to democracy, so that they feel sensitized to check their resources at all times and are not inclined to share polarizing messages on social media in the future. You can be the first brick of a series of falling dominoes, which ultimately can lead to people taking action for a better planet, for a good cause. This model clearly leads to a win-win. Good for you, good for the planet. All you have to do is open up your mindset to those people and those issues. Do believe you have the potential to inspire other people. It will be the start of your fully rewarding journey. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be your winning lottery ticket. Thank you.
This World Environment Day is a call to beat plastic pollution. Every year, over 400 million tons of plastic is produced worldwide, 1/3 of which is used just once. Every day, the equivalent of over 2,000 garbage trucks full of plastic is dumped into our oceans, rivers and lakes. The consequences are catastrophic. Microplastics find their way into the food we eat, the water we drink and the air we breathe. Plastic is made from fossil fuels. The more plastic we produce, the more fossil fuel we burn, and the worse we make the climate crisis. But we have solutions. Last year, the global community began negotiating a legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution. This is a promising first step, but we need all hands on deck.
want? Global Plastics Treaty!
A new report by the UN Environment Programme shows that we can reduce plastic pollution by 80% by 2040 if we act now to reuse, recycle, reorient and diversify away from plastics. We must work as one, governments, companies and consumers alike, to break our addiction to plastics, champion zero waste and build a truly circular economy. Together, let us share a cleaner, healthier and more sustainable future for all.
On this World Environment Day, we are calling on everyone to help beat plastic pollution. Why, you might ask? Well, because plastic pollution is choking our ecosystems, warming our climate, and very likely damaging our health. Recycling is not the sole solution, nor the magic bullet. Our system simply can't cope. Change has to happen across the whole life cycle of plastics. We must refuse unnecessary single-use items. We must redesign products and packaging to use less plastic. We must reuse, recycle, and reorient and diversify our systems. This is how we keep plastic out of the ecosystems and in the economy. Everyone must play their part. Governments can deliver a strong outcome on the deal to end plastic pollution, which is currently under negotiation. And businesses can adopt a life cycle approach. And the financial sector can put its capital right behind this very transformation that we need to see. And we, citizens, we can use our voices, our votes, and our wallets to drive change. My thanks to Côte d'Ivoire for showing their commitment to beating plastic pollution by hosting this, the 2023 World Environment Day. Now I ask that you join this global movement and help us beat plastic pollution once and for all.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. My name is Natalia Alexeyeva and I'm the new coordinator of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Happy to join you at this event and contribute with some messages from the Decade's family. I'm speaking to you today actually from Stockholm Plus 50. That's the biggest world celebration of the 50 years birthday of the Global Sustainable Development Movement. You know, our journey started here in Sweden in 1972. And if we look at the results from the positive side, of course, there are really big achievements to celebrate. For example, we eradicated the production of the related fuel. As a result, we avoided more than 1 million premature deaths. We protected over 38,000 species, and we managed to come together as a world to win the hole in the ozone layer. But if you follow the science and news today, you know that we have not yet done our job. And humanity continues to wage the war on nature. The latest Global Land Outlook report stated that up to 40% of the planet's land is degraded, directly affecting the half of humanity and threatening around half of global gross domestic product. We have passed already a critical junction in the fight against climate change, and now we need to do both, cut emissions and also bring back ecosystems, such as forests, peatlands, etc., to store additional carbon and to adapt them to the effects of climate change. The science and biodiversity is quite clear. 1 million species are at the risk of extinction. And sadly, we have crossed a line here too. Conservation efforts, while continuing to be vital, are not long enough, and we need to actively work on bringing back degraded or destroyed ecosystems. We need to protect what we have and to heal what we have damaged. It's a huge task, you know, and in fact it's almost like mission impossible, but it's possible, and that's possible only for the bigger family, and even though not the UN is not able to do it by itself. So it takes a movement, it takes all of you, and because you're the part of the generation restoration. We're the last generation that can make peace with nature and walk our talk. So that's why you may ask yourself, what can you do to support the movement and be a part of this? And here's some good news. There are countless ways to contribute to the global restoration movement, and it starts where you are. Do you know your ecosystems where you live in? City, agricultural area, rivers, coastlines, mangroves. Ask yourself, your neighbors, friends, relatives, how these ecosystems changed over the last decades. Are there things you can do to revive? How you can contribute? And then you get active, and then you could always join the groups and others around you to contribute. But of course, not everyone may have the access to the knowledge and resources to start restoration themselves, and that's also fine. In fact, we have an even bigger impact on the world's ecosystems through our food system and financial systems. So it does not stop at your doorstep either. You can support restoration efforts across the world in the ecosystems you take care about. Maybe rainforest, coral reefs, wild savannas or grasslands. So they're waiting for you. And of course, while individual efforts are important, we need transformative changes at all levels. So for example, for the governments, they've been committing to restore over 1 billion hectares as part of their global climate and biodiversity commitments and promises. So that's an area greater than China. And yes, these goals to be reached and to be implemented. And the same also, for example, if we're looking from other side, like investments, we know that the investments into restoration are on the rise, with major funds being announced at every opportunity. But the truth is that studies show we're far from the level of investment what is needed. We need to actually triple investment in nature, from currently 133 billion to over 339 billion. And new policy and finance are not enough either. So we need to reduce those which are causing harm right now. So we need to stop something which is killing our ecosystems. And the way we farm, for example, is a major driver of biodiversity loss. So we need urgently diversify our food systems, transform them, and to produce more sustainable and safer food for everyone, especially in the times of crisis. So on this occasion of the World Environment Day, I encourage you to get active and go to decade-on-restoration.org to learn more about ecosystem restoration and what you can do to protect and heal our beautiful planet. We're all together in this movement, and we're all together in this beautiful home, our Earth. So we need to take it for our kids and younger generation to thrive and enjoy. We're all together. Hoping on your action. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to deliver these remarks on behalf of the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN and the UN Environment Program. As you know, the UN General Assembly has designated the years 2021 through 2030 as the Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. It's tasked UNEP and FAO to lead in its implementation. The goal of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration is to prevent, stop, and reverse the continued degradation of loss of ecosystems. And this cuts across all ecosystems, from forests to farmland, from peaks of mountains to the depths of the sea. Research tells us that the next 10 years matter the most to prevent catastrophic climate change and bend the curve on biodiversity loss. During the next 10 years, every action, every day matters. Restoring ecosystems and reviving hundreds of millions of hectares is a daunting task, too big for any one organization to carry. The UN Decade will therefore create structures and systems, allowing everyone, especially local communities, indigenous groups, the youth and women, to make meaningful contributions to restoration. I'm pleased to note that the UN Decade will be formally launched on World Environment Day on the 5th of June this year, hosted by the government of Pakistan. And in this regard, we look forward to the active participation of countries, joining hands, raising ambition, and scaling up flagship restoration initiatives being implemented in the region. We need all hands on deck, working together with urgency and determination for the goals of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Thank you.
You've probably heard about a giant trash island in the ocean. Or that poor sea turtle and the straw. Maybe you've even heard how plastic is being found inside the fish we eat. The plastic crisis gets a lot of attention, but the headlines usually focus on the plastic that ends up in the environment. And that's just part of the story. The truth is, plastic has a whole life cycle that's hidden from view, one that harms people and the planet from start to finish. Let's start at the beginning. Plastic is made from fossil fuels like oil or fracked natural gas. Extracting those fossil fuels and turning them into plastics creates a lot of pollution. Pollution that most often affects marginalized communities nearby. As we've gotten better about using less oil and gas to power our lives, the fossil fuel industry found a lifeline in plastics. In fact, oil and gas companies are doubling down on plastic production, with plans to build or expand over 300 petrochemical plants in the US alone by 2025. But these companies already produce more plastic than we can use. So where's all that plastic going? A lot of it's flowing into new markets, in places like Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Because more than any other product category, plastic isn't driven by the demand for it, but by the supply. Corporations like Unilever, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble are aggressively marketing single-use plastic products around the world. These companies go to places like Indonesia, where I live, and push their products onto communities that just aren't prepared to deal with all that plastic. Maybe they're used to using natural packaging. Maybe they live on a tiny island without a system of waste collection. And on top of that, countries in the global north are shipping their own plastic waste into these countries too. When you add that all up, it's no wonder so much of this plastic ends up in the environment. And globally, that's where a whopping 32% of plastic packaging ends up. 40% goes to a landfill, where plastic just piles up for future generations to deal with. And 14% is incinerated. Incineration is a nasty business, producing toxic smoke and fly ash. These super expensive facilities depend on plastic to burn everything else. It is oil and gas after all. So they want to see more plastic, not less. Yahoo! Then there's recycling. Unfortunately, it's not the solution that many people think it is. Just 14% of plastic packaging gets recycled, and only 2% is effectively recycled, meaning it becomes something as useful as before. The rest is downcycled into something worse. And most recycled plastic is only recycled once, before ending up in landfills, incinerators, or the environment anyway. So it turns out that we can't burn, bury, or recycle our way out of this problem. And we can't just scoop all that plastic out of the environment either. That's like trying to bail out a bathtub with a teaspoon while the tap is on full blast. So how about we turn off the tap by shutting down the plastic machine? That means passing policies that create systemic change. Like phasing out the single-use plastics that pollute the most. Ending the fossil fuel subsidies that are fueling big plastic. And holding companies responsible for the plastic waste they create. That's how we can achieve our vision of a zero-waste future, where all of our products and packaging can be reused or repaired, effectively recycled or composted, and ultimately how we create a sustainable, circular economy that works for both people and the planet. Visit storyofplastic.org to learn more and take action.
Now, Rajiv.
Yes.
Over to you.
We are into last 1.5 hour of this marathon 24-hour long 4th edition of Earth is Calling, world's longest and largest environment online event. I will put Brigitta in the spotlight first. Hello, Brigitta. Let me unmute you.
Hi, it's good to see you all.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. Brigitta joins from Indonesia. She is one of National Geographic Young Explorers. She's also in the Youth Leadership Council of Earth Eco International. And rather than my reading out her profile, she will let the young students and youth know what she does and how she is here in the first place. So Brigitta, I just give you a summary of what we have been doing so far. For last, you started at 12 o'clock Indian time yesterday, and we have been here for almost 22 hours, 30 minutes, and 1.5 hours are left. Half an hour belongs to you, half an hour to one of my friends from Finland. And in the last half, Susan Gardner from UNEP, head of ecosystem division, will join. So, you know, our entire effort is geared towards energizing these youth, young students, and just like one you are yourself, to adapt lifestyle that will not inspire others also, but take them into living in harmony and peace with nature. So I have brought you here so you can share your experience, how you got to be there, and how these young students, they have been working for 7 days, 8 days, 10 days now for this conference, preparing themselves to ask questions, put up questions, reading your profiles, everybody's profile in this thing also. And for last 22 hours, they have been non-stop being here over a cup of hot coffee, black coffee, without coffee, whatever they are. So I'm currently, my hats off to them. In fact, we had lined up so many videos to be played out, we did not get enough time. So they'll be putting questions to you this half an hour after your presentations or whatever you do. But please introduce yourself in detail because they need to know how you got to be in the first place. So don't feel shy about sharing your achievements. You need to inspire these kids also so that we can be there. And I love Indonesia. I have very great many friends in Indonesia. We have done a lot of plantation work in Indonesia and in remote islands and near the coastal areas with the borders with Malaysia and Philippines. So Brigitta, welcome once again. I have my host friends, J.K. Singh is in Chandigarh, Mr. J.K. Singh, Mr. Ronnie Anthony in Taiwan, and together with a control team unit, which is behind the scenes, obviously, and the whole load of people who have put up this show, great mammoth. So the 4th edition of this 24-hour, the longest and the largest environment online event in the world. And in last 22 hours, we have had great speakers, I must tell you. You have the speakers list, so you would know about it. So over to Brigitta.
Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and jump into a little bit of a chat and about my journey. So can you see my screen?
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, hi everyone, my name is Brigitta, and I'm gonna talk to you about how I was able to respond to the climate crisis in my own capacity and taking ocean action now, whether it meant, for me, it meant starting in a landlocked community in Jakarta, which is a city, but it was still a great thing, a great action to start. So this is a little bit of what I do in one slide. These pictures represent what I do. So I am, as Mr. Rajiv said, a National Geographic Young Explorer for 2023. And my focus area is on the ocean. And I do a lot of ocean advocacy through Earth Eco International, which is a US-based nonprofit, which I am serving as part of the Youth Leadership Council. And I also launched 30 by 30 Indonesia, which is a movement to protect at least 30% of the world's ocean by 2030. I'm going to talk to you later about that in detail. And I do lots of restoration work and trying to make opportunities available for youth to get involved and collaborate with different generations to make meaningful action for the ocean. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is just for geographical context. Indonesia is in Southeast Asia. It's colored red in this map. And I actually grew up in Jakarta, but I actually took my first baby steps on the shores of Bali. So I was learning to walk, and actually my first steps was on the shores of Bali. And I've always had that very deep connection with the ocean. And very familiar with specifically Bali and Jakarta. But actually, right now I'm in Melbourne. I'm studying my undergraduate for conservation biology, which I got a fully funded scholarship for, and this is my first semester. But I will be heading back to Jakarta very soon in a couple weeks, and I'm excited to share with you some of the plans I have as well. So to begin talking about my journey, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was how I identified my passion, and I'm running through this in 3 steps, so you can also follow along about how you can take action. So first of all, identify your passion and link it to the problem and your personal connection. So for me, I knew that I was very passionate about the ongoing crisis of climate change. There are facts that we all are familiar with at this point, with the increases in surface temperature, and especially for Indonesia, this meant changing precipitation patterns with wetter climates in some islands and drier seasons in other islands. And this led to higher drought risk and flood risks in certain areas. And especially because we are the largest archipelago, you know, there are lots of coastal communities and also landlocked communities. All of us are impacted in different ways, and that stays true in different parts of the world as well. So I, as I mentioned before, have a very deep connection with the ocean, and I knew that I wanted to do something about it. And we also, from a climate perspective, know that the climate is regulated by the ocean, because the ocean generates every second breath we take. So it's over 50% of the world's oxygen, and absorbs over 25% of all carbon dioxide emissions. It's the largest carbon sink, and every dollar we invest, a study has shown that it brings $5 back into the economy in terms of economic health and environmental benefits. And also, the ocean health is linked to the human health. So when we're talking about the climate crisis, it's really important to link it back to the ocean as well, even though you might not be living near the ocean. So it's something to think about. And for me, protecting the ocean meant advocating for marine policies. So I was involved in understanding what marine protected areas are. So marine protected areas, or also known as MPAs, are areas where no extractive or destructive activities can take place. And with that law in place and that area being conserved effectively, we can allow marine life to thrive and recover. And with that said, in 2021, the IUCN, they called for the protection of at least 30% of the global ocean by 2030 through a network of marine protected areas. And this meant effectively conserving marine areas to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And there are lots of focus areas within 30 by 30 and the UN Ocean Decade that we can all, as youth, jump into in terms of being part of initiatives, leading your own conservation conversations, and leading change. So it's more than just plastic pollution and clean seas. And I'm going to talk to you about how this formulates into the work that I do with 30 by 30 Indonesia. So the second step was how I started my journey and how I launched 30 by 30 Indonesia in high school. I was 17 years old, and I was able to launch that. Now it's been 2 or 3 years, and it's been really exciting. And I've got to work with a lot of different people from different locations globally, as well as with local governments and local communities, and actually talk and speak on behalf of the youth as well in multiple conferences like the United Nations Ocean Conference, the Asia Parks Congress in Malaysia, the UNOC in Portugal, and as well in India and the Unleash Global Innovation Lab. So it was really exciting, and it's always a huge opportunity for youth in this decade. So I will share about my passion again. I mentioned before that I took my first baby steps on the shores of Bali, and I actually grew up as a competitive swimmer. So I've had this long bond with the ocean and water, being comfortable in and around the water. And this meant I was really keen on snorkeling and freediving. And this was actually, these pictures are from my first visit to a marine protected area, which is in Nusa Penida, Bali. And that was a very unique turning point for myself. I realized at that point that there's so much that I can do and I cannot wait any longer. I have to take action because I've seen many different underwater seed sites, but like I can compare it to a non-protected area and a protected area, and you can see the striking difference in terms of the coral reef conditions, the diversity of fish, the color, and also the sounds of the ocean. It's so vibrant in a marine protected area, and I realized how much like human activities have impacted these non-protected locations, and I knew that I really wanted to advocate for marine protected areas and meaningful ocean protection in Indonesia and beyond. So I also wanted to note that action does come with a mindset change, and it can be achieved through experiences and personal connection. And I recognize that a lot of times when we're talking about the ocean or nature specifically, we can often feel distant or like there's this gap of knowledge or a gap of experiences because we cannot feel the passion or the drive to protect something that we haven't really experienced unless we've developed a for nature mindset. So this is central to what I've been trying to do in 30 by 30 Indonesia, which is to provide unique experiences with these nature sites to leverage a mindset change and actually make them inspired to take action. And this includes 3 key approaches. So the 3 pillars are education, policy advocacy, and habitat restoration. On the left, that was from the 30 by 30 Youth Ocean Conference, which we hosted in November 2022 in 3 locations. It was virtually in Jakarta on site and also in Bali on site. And we talked about activating local communities, about the importance of 30 by 30 towards COP15 last year, where 30 by 30 was being signed on by hundreds of countries officially during the UN biodiversity meeting. And also the second picture is from the United Nations Ocean Conference in Lisbon, Portugal. And that was a really fantastic opportunity for me to share about my vision for 30 by 30, where I was introduced by the president of Portugal, and the French president actually came a few moments after and took my podium as well. And it was a great chance for me to voice the passions and voice the desires of the youth. And the third picture on the right is just still symbolic of what we did in mangrove restoration. So habitat restoration has been also our key goals in 30 by 30 Indonesia. We've planted coral reefs and also mangroves, and I'm going to talk to you about that real soon. So these are some pictures that represent what we've done in terms of social media campaigning. So I actually launched 30 by 30 Indonesia amidst the pandemic, and I had no access to the ocean. It was very much a virtual setting. And I was able to launch and reach out to my community to activate the community and engage with them through signs that they post on social media. And we've collected over 400 pictures from over 15 countries that says either 30 by 30 or 30 by 30 Indonesia, their message itself. And you can see some of them are wearing our masks. I designed these masks where the right side has the batik motif, which symbolizes the waves of the ocean. And it's called batik parang, which is traditionally symbolizing how the ocean waves never stop moving, just like how our spirit, we should keep on fighting on for what our heart desires. And also, there are different communities being involved here. Since I was able to connect with the local communities, the divers, there were also the teachers and students in schools, because we conducted school-wide ocean education campaigns where we visited them both online and on-site in different schools. Students were able to host a World Ocean Day event where they were dressing up in blue or the ocean creatures. And this involved a variety of age groups from kindergarten all the way to high school and even university who were involved in our ocean education campaigns. So these pictures and more can be found in our social medias. And what's central to this work is that we must understand, especially as young people, that advocacy can come in different forms. And I've talked to you before about this, and it can look like talking on a podium in front of world leaders. It can look like direct volunteering for restoration. So I was able to actually host that planting event, which was we planted 200 mangroves with the support of Earth Echo International on World Ocean Day, and I brought a group of high school students and their teachers to get involved and plant these 200 mangroves with the help of the local mangrove community. And also on the right, it's a local diving community in Bali, in Nusa Penida, and these are all just examples of different ways you can take action, whether it be direct action, whether it be learning, getting yourself involved, or educating yourself, or even creating forms of art through posters or pictures. So it is more about leveraging your passion and skills to make meaningful change, because every journey is unique. There will not be one right way of being climate or an ocean advocate. And when you realize that you shouldn't try to be like someone else and just stay true to your passion and connect what you have available to you with your passion and the resources you have, you can actually create meaningful change. So it's really important to think about that when you're starting this journey for climate advocacy. And also, I have put some pictures here, but to sum it up, in 2021, 2022, some of our education campaigns involved talking to large audiences, both virtually and on site. The top left picture is actually in the Asia Parks Congress Youth Forum, where I was talking about how intergenerational collaboration is key, and that positive memories can actually lead to people developing a for nature mindset. And in fact, I was there as the youngest delegate. Well, I was in year 12 of high school, and I was able to share these experiences and inspire other people to take action for the ocean. And down the middle are some pictures from our webinar. We hosted a webinar involving hundreds of participants from different countries. We talked about sharks and conservation, marine protected areas, and youth involvement, not just in the ocean space, but also in ways that you can help your local community in dealing with adaptation to the climate change. And on the bottom left and the top right, you can see these are some in-person pictures from a school in Bali and Jakarta, where we were able to make science plan for their World Ocean Day themed event, and also distribute free masks, the masks that I was talking about. So we were able to distribute free masks and cloth masks to the people who we invited into our events and participated throughout Jakarta and Bali, where we were. And yeah, and of course, in terms of education campaigns, there are different materials suited to different age groups. And with younger groups of people, we cater it to a more holistic call to action, whereas with older audiences, we're talking more about policy, systematic change, and the intersection between different sectors in dealing with the climate crisis. And in terms of policy advocacy, so this was very exciting at the time. The pictures where you can see people wearing orange uniforms. These are from the local government of Bali, where they are holding, it's a small sign, but they're holding 30 by 30 Indonesia in different locations in Nusa Penida, which was actually the location where I first discovered the marine protected area and how significant it is. So they published this in their official website, and they were able to share about the importance of marine protected areas. And the people in the water are also part of a local diving community in Nusa Penida. And we've also engaged with the Coral Triangle Center in Bali. And as you can see, some of them are also wearing our masks. And it was a great way to leverage call to action and getting all these different stakeholders involved into the work that we as young people are leading. And lastly, on terms of restoration, these are some pictures from our coral restoration planting event in 2022 Earth Day. So this event involved the support from National Geographic Society, the Nature Conservancy, and Paragon 1. And we planted 30 structures on the ocean floor. So it actually forms the number 30 on the ocean floor. And we were able to give some of the youth the opportunity to try snorkeling and even diving for this first time with the help and support of the diving community. And on the land, while the divers are actually setting these up down in the water, the children and the local village communities were cleaning up.
ये मीका ने YouTube का वीडियो भेजा, डायरेक्टली उसको प्ले कर देना, वो लाइट भेजा है, बट हम उसको नाराज नहीं करना चाहते, ठीक है?
Yeah, so the youth were able to clean up the trash from the local beaches, and also on the left there were the coral workshop, and the night before we actually discussed about coral reef restoration 30 by 30 and the sustainable development goal number 14. And you can see that they were very much involved in this beach camp, and some were able to try tying on those corals into the structures themselves, and just to see how divers work underwater. And it's really exciting to see how people's mindset and perspective has started to form through this experience. So I just wanted to share this short recap of what we did during the coral transplantation event. Let me know if the audio doesn't play or anything, but yeah.
Audio is not playing, Brigitte. Hello. Can you hear me, Brigitte?
Yeah.
Your audio is not playing, video is playing.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just like some music. There's no.
Okay, no issues.
Yeah, so there was no voiceover, so it was just some music. But as you can see, these are just some footage from underwater on site. If you can see earlier, there was the 30 on the ocean floor, and it's still there. And we're hoping to expand that and continue restoring the reefs, maintaining them, and fully having the community to participate as well. And this is the last step, number 3, that I'd wanted to share to you today. So you can actually take action now. For me, it was starting and reaching out to my community during the pandemic with just whatever I had with me. So you really don't need to live near the coast to start when we're talking about ocean advocacy. It's more about using your passion and leveraging the resources available to you at the moment, because the best thing you can do is to use what you have right now and make change happen. So these are some lessons learned. My first advice would be, don't be afraid to take the first step, because what I've realized over time is that as we grow older, we start to overthink and actually doubt ourselves, whereas when we've had this passion and you have this plan inside your head, it's best to consult and talk with a lot of people you know, and talk with experts, you know, and consult and try to take the first step. And it can even just be small changes into your daily life, like reducing plastic, because no change is too small to make a difference. And the second thing I wanted to share is passion actually catalyzes change. And I'm really a firm believer that passion is really what drives you and gives you energy. So when you found your passion, you should really stay true and hold on to it and never let it go, because that will take you in places you can never imagine. I never thought that I would be meeting so many people who are driven by the same energy, and being able to speak in these different settings and leverage different peoples from all around the world. But the fact is that I just stayed true to my passion and just wanted to make my skills and more useful to my community and make impact in that way. And lastly, intergenerational collaboration is key. We need to develop intersectional and intergenerational collaboration, because we can learn from the past generations, and we must make changes based on the formulation of different ideas and talking and connecting with different people from different backgrounds, realizing that the climate crisis impacts us in different ways, and that environmental justice is a huge problem, because many different communities are impacted in different ways because of this. So it's always important to keep in mind all these different factors, but also staying true to your personal connection, why you started having interest in the first place. And one way you can get involved in this ocean space is to join Gen Z. So if you can go to joingenz.org and sign up, it's a platform where you can share your passion for networking, learning, and collective action. And it is about sharing opportunities, whether it be summits, maybe projects, internships, but there are lots of opportunities you can access there. You can talk with other people across the world. You can locate different people in your region and talk with them via Gen Z. And it is a global community. It's growing. It has over 1,000 people from all over the world. And we are a global community of like-minded ocean advocates. So I would personally like to invite you all to and meet you all on Gen Z. And I just have to share one more short video to end the presentation, but this doesn't really have audio as well, but just let me know.
We are Gen Z. We are Gen Z.
And on that note, I would love to see you all on Gen Z, and I'm really excited to welcome you all on the platform. So thank you for listening today. You are more than welcome to get involved in our Ocean Echo 30 by 30 campaign, as well as the 30 by 30 Indonesia. It's not just a movement within Indonesia. It's a global collective movement to get involved. And if you are on social media, whether it be Instagram or YouTube, you can check those out. Tag us if you have any thing you want to share, you want to ask us any questions. We're more than happy to engage with you all. So thank you. And I'll pass it back on to Rajiv.
Thank you, Brigitte. And it was lovely hearing you, listening to you, and looking at your presentations. I'm sure that many of the students here and those watching on Facebook, thousands of them, will be pretty impressed, and your email box will be full of all sorts of requests to join your organization. And the point of putting you here is also to inspire this youth. They can learn from your actions and maybe follow some of their own as well. So thank you so much. We'll see how much time is available. Then we'll put up questions also. But you're going to stay with us until 12 for next 1.5 hours.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. We are also waiting for my friend Mika, who is in the panel, put the spotlight to him, and then we can, yes. Hello, Mika. Let me unmute you. Yes. Can we unmute Mika? Yes.
Yes. Hello, Rajiv. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Just for the benefit of all the participants, our journey started together almost 20 years back, 23 years back rather. In 2 years, we'll be celebrating quarter century in Finland. I was in a remote part of Assam, which was, we hardly had any internet connection. Students had to go to the lab and they would send offline messages and somehow. So Mika initiated project and we got on board together. So I feel like a founder member of ENO. And we were trying to put environment education and use of internet technology in education, and the topic we chose was rather initiated was environment. And in this 25 years, we built up a network of almost 150 countries, more than 10,000 schools, and I don't know how many million students. And today, ECNOW is an offshoot of all such efforts. So we are pretty, I don't know how to describe him, but he is a very, very versatile person. And we have been to many parts of the world together. We have planted with presidents, prime ministers, young kids, students, everybody, but we are all teachers. So in the frame, everybody you see right now, the 7 people, they're all teachers, basic teachers with no powers of our own, but we have been able to move mountains with the power of the youth and student that's present in this session. So thank you, Mika. I know it's very early in the morning and I had to shift your time a little bit because Susan was supposed to join in and they are pretty busy that day. So not only good friends, I have in screen Ronnie Anthony from Taiwan. He's an NO coordinator also for Taiwan. We have our host school, JK Singh. He's been there since the first event began to celebrate 20 years of environment online. And Brigitte is from Indonesia. She is Nat Geo Young Explorer. And then we have our Sakshi Gera from BFIS, Brookfield International School, who has been working with students and coordinating for the last 7 days. And on the screen, I have now Dr. Deepthi Chhabargai. I have brought here on the screen because the title song was written by Ronnie. It was composed by members of Genius Lions. I don't know, Deepthi, are they here on the screen? So let me put them on the screen as well. With what screen name?
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Yeah, I will add the spotlight. So here is Mr. Genius Lion. And his name is, you gave me 2 names, Puneet Sachdeva. Is Puneet Sachdeva. So we were trying to put our heads together. We are not musician composer. Mika is one. Mika is a very fine composer, musician. He writes his own lyrics and we are always using him. He's the best of music. So, but we got these lyrics and we composed, and after the blues, the tune came out so well that the kids liked it. I mean, because the kids like all sorts of weird things. So before we move on to next thing, I'll play that video, little dance item. They have composed a dance also on that from Brookfield International School. The same steps were done by Deepthi. She's our Zumba teacher. She has both Western classical and all sorts of dance forms. She does it. And JK sir, can you play this track number? I'm losing track of my own tracks. So V3 and the music there, I need to give them credit also because we are so happy seeing it.
In a world full of waste, we can't stand down. It's a time to act now, turn things around. Every day, plastic pollution, it's choking our earth. Sustainable choices now give them birth. Yes, we can. New generation, take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together, we'll find better ways. Imagine all the plastic used just once and thrown away. We can reduce, recycle, to create a better day. Act now, make a difference, be the change you want to see. Our planet needs our help for a better world to be. Imagine all the creatures living without plastic waste. No more plastic in our oceans, planet's beauty will embrace. Be the change, yes we can. New generation take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together we'll find better way. Come on, let's join together and take action. Don't delay. We can make a brighter future for a better world today.
So thank you, Dr. Deepti, and thank you, Puneetji, and I'll be catching hold of you again and again. Hats off to you. The kids loved it, and for your information, past 3 years, we have been doing our own lyrics on songs composed, all amateurs. We have absolutely no knowledge of music here by our side. These are experts, and every single year, the UNEP has been putting these songs on their playlist. So hopefully this year also it will go on the playlist of United Nations Environment Program. And I have Mika and Brigitta here, and we have 20 minutes exactly before Susan joins in from UNEP, and we'll have a chit chat. I'll introduce Mika a bit more because our profiles are so entwined together that it's so difficult to even introduce him. Out of the all logos that you see on our band as a organizing partner, actually there are 4 or 5 logos that Mika is directly initiator of that. You see Environment Online, which he initiated, it started founded in 2000. We have been there on a journey of 23 years now. Then you see Environment Online India, which is obviously offshoot of that. Then you see Tree Buddy is currently Tree Master, Tree Buddy Earth, which is a very unique concept. And maybe you'll go on the website. We have also planting locations in Indonesia. And then Envirate, which is again an mobile app that is built to track planted trees and also to rate your environment. Then the Plant Climate Action Part is on Plant and Care for Peace, which is again initiated by Mika. This is the logo. And we are going to show you a video of some actions. There are thousands and thousands of videos and actions from all around the world. But we will show a small YouTube video of this year's Plant and Care for Peace. And then I'll get back to Mika and we'll have a chit chat. We'll let the students connect with you and ask all sorts of questions in the next 20 minutes. So JK sir, can you play that YouTube video? You just download it and then we can get on with this session.
Peace is our way. Love is the key.
Hi and ho, we plant trees for environment and peace. North and south, east and west, trees will grow high and low. And learn to live in peace and harmony.
Planting trees is a country deed for the environment, but trees also need care that they survive and grow, like us in our friendships. World needs peace now more than ever. With tree planting and care, we work together towards a more green, peaceful and sustainable world. Schools and organizations from over 60 countries have already joined Plant and Care for Peace. We cannot close our eyes from war. In Europe, Ukraine is fighting for its freedom. People die and are fleeing from their homes. People are also suffering from violence everywhere. They all need help. You can help them through donations. It's a small thing, but you can make a difference. Never lose hope, never give up. This tree is a symbol for us. Firstly, it reminds us of nature and importance of climate and environmental protection. Secondly, it symbolizes our cooperation between people around the world. Thirdly, tree planting is to nurture the nature, like we need to nurture our relationships.
Together we stand for unity. We grow trees in harmony. When there's hatred and confusions everywhere, we need to build bridges more and more. Even some try to burn them all. We are all different, yet we are all the same. Children of the world, let's all together sing. I am
Together we stand for unity. We grow trees in harmony. When the hatred and confusion's everywhere, we need to build bridges more and more. Even some try to burn them all. We are different, but yet we are all the same. Taking some steps to change the world, even if quietly. Peace is our way. Love is the key. Peace is our way. Love is the key.
Thank you so much. That was from one of our NO schools in Delhi. And in my own school, we had a huge tree planting ceremony with two beauty queens, Miss Earth International and Miss Eco International. Unfortunately, I couldn't put out the pictures together in rush of this event, but I'll share with you shortly. And personally, I and Mika must have planted thousands of trees in as many countries, isn't it, Mika? So over to you for a brief chit chat with the students. We have lots of students in this session, and they are dying to ask some questions to you. So briefly, please address these students and how you have been able to motivate students across the world, not only in Finland.
So actually, it started over 20 years ago, and because of ICT, it's possible. And it was possible then. It was a different systems then and not so much technology, but it's the empowerment of people to doing things together that what unites us, and environment is our common concern. And I can also I really love the video by the NO school in Delhi to make this also to speak and to do something, to act now.
Yes, and I really don't know. Mika has been dedicated his entire life, literally. He's a fantastic music composer also, so all tunes, music, lyrics, everything is done by him. And I remember our biggest moment was when we were invited by United Nations, and was invited, and I, Mika, and one of our coordinators from Malaysia and from Brazil, we were there in Rio de Janeiro in 2012, when this Sustainable Development Goals were muted upon. And there's a huge conference over many days, and NO was one of the commitment that was registered by the United Nations. And still Environment 9 is a accredited on the accredited panel of United Nations Environment Program. So we get opportunities to send our teachers, staff, teachers from other countries as well whenever they have these functions. And there we had launched a book called Planting Seeds of Action, which was released by Tarja Halonen, the former president of Finland. And since then, the Finnish government also been very helpful. Sauli Niinisto has planted Finland, current president of Finland, Sauli Niinisto has planted twice with us. He's always spends time with the students. The First Lady Jane Akuyo is also, I mean, we have got support from almost all corners of Earth. And how Mika has moved is all these initiatives, and how we have moved around the world together is a fantastic story, which we'll share sometime later once we have retired and trying to pen a book. So everybody, Mika, as you know, the inspiration from NO, and right now this organization that now we have in partnership with many organizations. I believe in networking. We believe in networking because power together makes you much more powerful than you are yourself. So we have 15 minutes. I think I will let the students take the floor because they are dying and they have worked very hard. I am so floored by their efforts in last 24 hours and in last 7 days that I have absolutely no word for them. So JK sir, can you have some students putting up, because Susan will come at 11:30 and then after with half hour is completely packed up.
You can unmute yourself, Akshat from Brookfield.
So much, sir. My question is to both the speakers, Brigitta and Mika. The question is that, first of all, both of your speeches were very empowering for me. So thank you. So the question is community. I know community engagements are very empowering in both of the sectors you do, the work you do. But what are some challenges and stereotypes you faced while working for while advocating for environment?
Can I answer a bit before Mika joins in?
Yes, of course.
Sure, sir.
Mika will answer to that. It's not a political forum, but anything you do in life, there will always be people who will try to throw off your balance. And Mika has also faced many challenges. We remember all the emails that I still have in mailbox. The challenge we face from authorities the moment the program started growing, there'll be people who will throw off the balance. And there are people all around the world, not in one country, everywhere. It's your job to overcome those challenges and push through. If you have a commitment, I always say, if you know the why of things, you'll always find the how of it. If you know why you're doing something, you always find the means to do it. So Mika, please. It's a great question from Akshit.
Thank you. About the challenges, of course, if you don't believe what you are doing, it's impossible. But always when there is a will, there is a way, said our former president Martti Ahtisaari, Nobel Peace Prize winner. Actually, what has been the most challenging is, of course, to find more and more people. We have a big network, but we should have even more bigger, and to have influence also to decision makers. And politics is one thing. We have to try to focus on. We don't actually do politics. Our environment is our politics, common politics. What we are doing, it's difficult, but you just have to keep on trying. You just have to get people involved. That's the most important one. Also, those who don't agree what you are doing, to share your views and also try to help to understand them, but also get them involved. That's so every human being is important, and that's how you have to approach to every people. But through action, through different activities, and through positivity, I think they are the major things that you should do for the environment.
Thank you so much, Mike. I believe the main thing is that we gotta believe in what we do. So that's the main thing. Thank you so much, Mike. And now, Brigitta, can you just answer the question?
Yes, of course. I definitely agree, and more power to what you've been saying, Rajiv and Mika. I definitely agree. And for me, I think it is some of the challenges I face would be knowing that as a young person, there's so much you need to learn, while at the same time you feel this is a long journey, it's a marathon, and sometimes you can feel like rather less energized because you see all these things you can do that you want to act upon right now, but at the same time there's a long change process, and change doesn't come in the blink of an eye, and it comes with the hard work and dedication of different groups of people coming together. And I think realizing that we're all here in a community of like-minded people, and being in the support of a community is really one of the ways to keep going. And also the bottom line as well is that in a world full of different crises, it's really important to remain optimistic. And I think the power of the youth is that we can remain optimistic and drive and bring our passion to the table, where lots of these older generations are finding it difficult to see the optimism. So yeah, just wanted to let that be known.
Thank you so much, Brigitta and Mika, once again. So true.
Okay, who else? I'll have Bramjot asking questions. He's sitting there. Bramjot, can you unmute? Let me. Okay.
Greetings, ma'am. Greetings, sir. So, ma'am, my question to you both was that that you would have faced many challenges in your life till now being in this field. So, and how many challenges you have done, you must have overcome them. So, there are many problems and challenges, but how do you overcome them? So, can you please guide us way as we a youth is needing a path? Ma'am, sir.
Sorry, do you
So,
need to repeat the question?
my question was that you would have faced many challenges and problems in your life, but how do you overcome them? Like, what are the ways?
As a teenager or as a climate activist?
As a climate activist.
Because he's a teenager also. So fine. As a climate activist, Brigitta.
Yes, of course. I think it's adding on to what I've said earlier. It's more about being able to stay grounded in your passion and who you are as a person, and always being open to learn, being open to being educated, and trying to develop and talk with different people to develop the best courses of actions to take is the best way to go. Because whenever you have these different challenges, I think the first thing to recognize is that everyone also has their own challenges in different ways. And with the people you connect with, you can always find the best course of action, just being open to constructive criticism as well. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Mika.
Yes, actually, as 58-old person, I could say that life is a really, you learn everything new every day. So, so you must be curious. You must be positive. You must listen to people. Try to understand them. It's not always you should, of course, you're thinking that you are right in some things, but maybe you haven't taken into account all the other aspects. But despite that, you must have attitude. That's the count. So even though you have challenges, you must just keep on what you're doing. Never lose hope. Never give up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Really.
And I will leave the floor to Sambhavi because she's one of the cutest girl on the entire panel, and she's already started moving her neighbors and literally threatening them to not to do any pollution anymore. So she has some questions, and she has been at it. She's all of, I don't know how old she's, 10, 11? Sambhavi?
Sir, 12.
Oh, 12. That she just completed 12. So ask your question. I know you have some very cute questions for both Mika and Brigitta.
I'll be 12 in July.
Great. Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
From Finland, from Indonesia, from Mala Madam, from America, from Barminder in Sonipat, from me, from all over the world.
Thank you very much.
The
So my
question,
question
please.
is for Brigitta ma'am, that during your presentation, you said that we should not be afraid of taking our first step. So how can we children take our first step to the big change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've said it before in different locations, and I'm going to say it again because really I believe that there's no action that's too small, and what the best action for you to take is whatever is available to you at the moment. So in my case, I would usually say it's best for you to start conversations with the issues you're passionate about, and you can learn so much by talking to people and your friends, your community, and start building on that knowledge and future connections to actually understand this issue in a more general sense, as well as through the resources you have available. And that can translate into your personal actions for responsible actions for daily living. Like we can start reducing plastic we use. But that again begins with speaking up and educating yourself. So that would be my best advice.
Thank you very much.
May I add also that it would be, it's very important to find same-minded people, your friends, and from different ages, and to talk with them, like Brigitte said, to have conversation, but also to network and to organize some activities together, so the local community will will notice that even better, and maybe you will get some more people involved and will educate your community. For instance, when it's about the plastics or whatever.
Next, Barbinder. You can unmute yourself and ask question. Barbinder, are you there? Yes, unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. So my question is to both of you speakers. First of all, thank you so much for the enlightening words. My question is that, all of us in whatever field we work, even as students, we all have goals in our mind. So what are your goals that you look forward to achieving in the near future, and how do you plan to, achieve them?
I guess I can start. So in terms of both ocean advocacy and as a new undergraduate student, my goal is to do the best in my capacity to balance all these things that I have on my table. Because as much as I am an ocean advocate and a climate activist, I'm also a full-time student, and I'm really passionate about what I'm studying. So my goal is to be the best that I can be in these fields. And I plan on achieving them by staying, again, true to what I have in mind in the long term, because I really want to study. I'm really passionate about what I'm studying, and I know that at the end, this will be fruitful. And in terms of ocean advocacy as well, it's more about being grounded to what you have and translating your visions into real action.
Thank you, Mom.
So we have 4 more minutes before Susan is already inside the event, and she will be taking what 11:30. She is on a very tight schedule. So she will be speaking for 10 minutes on behalf of UNEP, and then 10 minutes of question answer. Then we have some videos to be played out, and then we finish up 12 o'clock successfully, 4th edition of this longest event possible. I remember when we were discussing the first event when we were celebrating 20 years, and that was Zoom was new. So we're thinking, I think after that event, Mika and our good friend Pekka was here yesterday. We were sitting in a cafe in Helsinki, and they're just mind-boggling. These Indians are impossible. so like that. And every year we thought, let's cut it. We're not doing it again. But I'm really empowered by, you think we are empowering you, but I feel empowered to have the students supporting at the back of it. And they have run the events, Mika, so beautifully since last 7 days and last 24 hours that I'm completely hands off. So thumbs up to them, hats up to them. And we have 3 minutes. Any more questions? Last question to
Yes,
Brigita or Mika.
Dhriti,
I would like to ask.
Dhriti, you can ask.
Was there any point in your life where you felt demotivated, and how do you overcome it?
Yes, life is like this, as you know, some ups and downs. And yes, I have some times when my motivation level was very low. It was mostly because I think that my local community didn't understand the importance of work, what I do. But how did I overcome from them? It was through the online community, through the people around the world like you and other people, to make believe that I will get more and more concrete deeds for the environment through people, through communities. And I can say that most important is really to find people and to share things with them, and to make them understand what we have to do for our planet Earth.
Thank you, sir.
So here we are, it's 11:28, and Susan is already here. I'll still run 1 minute, and I'll just give the brief on everything that has happened so far. I request all the guests to be with us until the last half an hour of this marathon program. Susan, welcome to this event. And I just give you a brief. We are motivated, empowered by these young students who have been training for almost 7-10 days, framing questions for all difficult sorts of, all difficult questions for you and for the rest of the guests also. And for last 24 hours, most of them have been without a wink. They have been sleeping over coffee. Some of them canceled their summer vacation program to be with on the program, and the parents, they are supporting it. And I'll read out the profile in this spare 2 minutes of Susan. Susan is not just here because she is the head of ecosystem division of United Nations Environment Program. She's a very powerful lady in terms of the kind of work she has done. For the benefit of students and all the guests here and those who are on the live session, she is currently the director of ecosystem division of UN Environment Program, where she leads global programs to promote nature-based solutions for sustainable development. Her work on combating ocean pollution included leading the process that achieved a global agreement to negotiate a treaty to end plastic pollution. Hence, the theme of UN Environment Day this year is Beat Plastic Pollution. So that comes, I hope it originates from Susan. And she has 3 decades, 30 long years of experience in international environment policy working for both the Mexican and United States government. Susan, just to let you know that just before you, a few hours before, we had Dr. Norma Munoz, who you know very well. She is advisor to the Climate Council of the President of Mexico. And she said she knows you well because probably the organization that you work for in Mexico, she was also associated there. And in these positions, Dr. Gardner has worked advanced women and girls in science. So all the girls and women in this conference, you know, she is a strong advocate for your rights also around the world. And her association with science and technology, she established the ASEAN-US Science Prize for Women. And based on her contribution to the Global Mercury Partnership and Minamata Convention, you can research and Google what is Minamata Convention. She was awarded the Global Gold Medal for exceptional services from one of the strongest organizations in the world, EPA, that is the US Environmental Protection Agency. If you read out the history of EPA, you'll be surprised they are even more powerful than the CIA and the FBI. So, and she has been given this is the highest national honor that the agency gives to anybody in this world. Her research has generated over 30 publications, including a book and book chapters on topic related to natural resource management and sustainable development. So she is not just because she's the head of UNP, she's a very, very powerful leader. She has been like that for she's like inspiration to all the girls, young students and women around the world. You can follow in her footsteps or create your own footsteps, and she'll be supportive. Susan, I am so thankful to UNEP. I have some seeding questions for you also, to UNEP, not to you directly. UNEP has been very supportive of this program. When Ecosystem Decade on Restoration was launched in 2021, tagging Generation Restoration, Tim Christopherson was live from Kenya for half an hour with us, and he mentioned that it was one of the most happy programs that he ever attended during the entire day. And I know how busy UNEP is today on 5th June when the World Environment Day is being celebrated. And despite your occupation, several emails, you responded to me and you are on this program. Last year, we had Natalia Alexieva, who was attending 50 years of UNEP, and she was in Sweden, but she made sure that she sent a message to us. So I'm very supportive, very happy that UNEP is supportive of organizations like us. And I'll give you the concept of this 24-hour program. We started in 2020 when Corona happened, and we did not know what to do. So we had no physical conferences. That time we were celebrating 20 years of Environment Online, which originated in Finland. Mika is right here on your screen. And we thought about putting up a program of running around from the first tree planting ceremony in New Zealand, one of the islands near New Zealand, and then run it through the world. And it was successful. And then we thought we can create a platform for people who don't have access to exposure. I mean, lots of people get exposed to activities that their actions get highlighted, but they are young students who do a lot of work. They are not listened to, they're not heard to, and it has become the strongest platform. So I'll be coming to those questions again to you, but the floor is to you. I know you're in tight schedule. You'll speak for 10 minutes and 10 minutes for question answer, and 10 minutes I have some seeding videos for you, and then 12 o'clock we call it a night. But thanks to UNEP, thanks to Susan and the entire team at UNEP that is very supportive, and we're grateful for that. Susan.
Well, Rajit, thank you so much for that very generous introduction. And truly, it's my pleasure to be here, not only for World Environment Day, but just to be a part of this incredible 24-hour event. I'm really impressed with how you've been able to continue to keep this up and watch it grow. And so thank you for inviting me to speak a bit on, particularly on generation restoration. As you know, UNEP has led World Environment Day since 1973, and it is our moment to drive a global call for action for all of us. And right now, more than ever, we know that we need this clearly. Just last November, when governments were joining together in Egypt to talk about how to take action to reduce climate change at the climate conference. Our global population reached 8 billion people with the birth of a baby girl that was born in Manila. And so now our world has 8 billion people who have the right to shelter, to nutritious food, to clean water. And just last July, the UN General Assembly acknowledged the human right to a healthy environment. So it was at that meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh that the UN Secretary General asked, how will we answer when baby 8 billion is old enough to ask, what did you do for our world and for our planet when you had the chance? But he also said, the good news is that we know what to do, and we have the financial and technical tools to get the job done. So one of those tools that I'd like to talk about today is restoration. We need to not only sustainably manage and conserve what we have in the environment, what is still in good shape, but we also have to restore what we've lost. And it was 2 years ago on World Environment Day 2021 that we launched the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration that aims to reverse the damage that we've caused to nature. As you said, this is led by UNEP together with FAO, and the decade is designed to prevent, to stop, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems on every continent and in every ocean across the planet. And it's really created a global movement of #GenerationRestoration as a call for broad-based support to ramp up ecosystem restoration and put the world back on track for a sustainable future. And you see, when we think about restoration, restoring ecosystems offers an incredible opportunity. Think about it, restoring forests slows climate change by absorbing carbon. Restoring landscapes creates productive soils for agriculture. Restoring vegetation can stabilize water resources that have benefits for communities in times of flooding, but as well as in times of drought. And restoring natural buffers creates a shield against the spread of zoonotic diseases. Restoration provides livelihoods for communities and helps build resilience of vulnerable communities. And every dollar that we invest in restoration creates up to $30 in economic benefits. If we are carefully planning and restoring 15%, just 15% of our converted lands, if we do that together with stopping any further destruction of natural ecosystems, we could avoid 60% of the anticipated species extinctions. But action right now matters, and these conversations you're having right now matters. At the moment, there's 1 million species at risk of extinction. Last December, at the conference of the Convention on Biological Diversity, close to 190 countries came together in Montreal to adopt the Combing Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And this was a milestone in the international efforts to halt and reverse the loss of biodiversity, like a new era for nature, in the same way that the 2015 Paris conference did for climate. This decision actually establishes for all of us this roadmap to ensure that by 2050, biodiversity is valued, conserved, and restored, and wisely used, so that we're maintaining ecosystem services and having benefits that are essential for all people. It lays out in this framework 23 action-oriented global targets, and it's describing what we need to do now, this decade, before 2030, to achieve this vision: conserving and sustainably using biodiversity, ensuring the fair and equitable sharing of benefits of the genetic resources of biodiversity while providing the necessary means of implementation. So to align with this vision, there's a number of things that clearly need to be done, that's for sure. And so I'd just like to highlight 4 of those. First is that we need a food system transformation. Our food systems are deeply dependent on nature for ecosystem services. Think about soil nutrition, think about irrigation, pollination, pest control, and the whole range of ecosystem services that support food production. More than 75% of the world's food crops rely, at least in part, on pollination by insects or birds or other animals. And yet, the way we're producing food right now is responsible for about 60% of global biodiversity loss. So everyone wins when we transition our food systems to farming in a way that's more biodiversity supportive. And we're working at UNEP to develop some of those approaches, agroecological approaches that work with nature to support resilient and genetically diverse crop species or livestock and soil microbes for more productive fields, which produce more nutritious food and create better livelihoods for communities. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is in line with the focus of this year's World Environment Day and this theme of beat plastic pollution. Because we know we have to move away from the linear model where we take and then make and use and then dispose of things to a more circular approach that actually incentivizes reusing products and materials. Because currently there's an estimated 11 million tons of plastics that flows into the ocean every year. But research shows that if we use a comprehensive circular economy type approach, we could actually reduce the volume of plastic that enters the ocean by more than 80% over the next 20 years. And with those efforts, we could save governments $70 billion during that time frame. So again, it's a win-win. And last week, countries were all together in Paris to discuss how to put an end to plastic pollution. This meeting was a result of a historic resolution that was adopted last year at the UN Environment Assembly right here in Nairobi, where I'm talking to you from. And it calls for negotiation of an international legally binding instrument to address the full life cycle of plastics. We know this is the type of comprehensive approach that is needed to truly beat plastic pollution. The third thing I want to highlight is that we need massive shifts in financing. By 2030, investment in nature-based solutions needs to at least triple if the world's going to meet our biodiversity targets, but also our climate change and land degradation targets, and to really empower the full potential of ecosystem services for sustainable development. And finally, we need to promote quality as well as quantity in our conservation and restoration efforts, which means ensuring that there's equitable, inclusive, and gender-responsive participation in decisions, with full protection of environmental human rights defenders, and safeguarding and empowering the leadership of Indigenous peoples and local communities in order to incorporate the knowledge that they've distilled over millennia through their close relationship with knowledge and the wisdom that comes from that. One of my favorite quotes comes from the Kenyan environmentalist and Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai, who created the Green Belt movement, organizing women's group to plant trees to both restore the environment and improve their quality of life. And she said, "Today we're faced with a challenge that calls for a shift in our thinking so that humanity stops threatening its life support system. We're called to assist the earth to heal her wounds and in the process, heal our own." And the beauty of restoration is it actually conveys this message of hope, and it can happen at any scale. So for all of us, all of you, a backyard plot, a city park, a river valley, a national forest, or a globally threatened ecosystem. The second target of the Global Biodiversity Framework calls for at least 30% of areas under effective restoration, including terrestrial, inland water, marine, and coastal ecosystems. And now we know this is no small task. Biodiversity loss, climate change, plastic pollution are all symptoms of an unhealthy relationship with nature. And it's time that we heal that relationship. Achieving successful restoration at the scale that we need requires deep societal and economic changes. To truly restore the planet takes a concerted effort of the whole of government, and whole of society. So we need communities and activists, women, youth, indigenous groups, private companies, financial investors, researchers, governments at all levels, all together rolling up their sleeves. And this means that everybody can get involved. We all have a role to play. We can choose individually, we choose how we consume and what we throw away. So we can be informed about the impacts of our purchases and be resistant for wasteful plastic packaging. I ask you, please be intentional about what industries you support for the environmental future that you want. Those who were born in areas that have food security can make sustainable dietary decisions and be aware of the opportunities to reduce food waste. Be curious about the environmental costs of the food that you eat. And the hashtag Generation Restoration Movement gives an opportunity to all of us to raise our voices. And I encourage all of you to take action. We can encourage each other to take action as we raise our voices. Young people in particular, including those of you online today, speak up through activism, through the arts and performances that we've seen in this event, through cleanups, through protest movements. Your voices are strong and getting stronger, and you have power to decide your future. And we need you now in this movement. Just keep in mind, World Environment Day is a reminder that our actions matter and solutions are at our fingertips. Our collective efforts will determine the future of humanity. So the moment to do this is now. And in closing, I'd like to leave you with the words that the Secretary General left when he closed his speech in Sharm el-Sheikh. He said, "One thing is certain, those that give up are sure to lose. So let's fight together and let's win for the 8 billion members of our human family and for generations to come." Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, so much. I know your speech and interaction today with some of the youth, they will turn into lifelong climate activists for you. I will have a short couple of questions for you and maybe short answer, because if you're short of time, then I have 2 students who will be putting up questions to you. And then we would like you to see some videos, a song that was entirely composed on beat plastic pollution by entirely amateur staff, students. And if we shoot over a time bit of it, I hope you'll stay back until that song finishes. I will have 1 student each from 2 schools that are currently participating, from Chandigarh and 1 from Modern School in Delhi, 1 Brookfield International School, our host school in Chandigarh. But I want to put a question, and maybe a short answer is required. Despite everything, I know UNEP works under a lot of pressure because you also need funding and you work with the government that composed of UNEP in the first place. So obviously you can evade direct answers, but maybe, do you think strong government sometimes a strong threat to nature? You know, governments are strong and suddenly they decide that they'll pull out the Paris Agreement. Suddenly they decide they'll cut down the Amazon forest and they do away with all the years of work of entire community, global community. So do you think yes or no will be sufficient? Do you think very strong governments sometimes a very great threat to nature itself? Because they can, you see what is happening in Ukraine these days. I mean, without being political, a short answer, you can accept the answer if you're not comfortable with that.
Hard to have a short answer to such an important question, Rajiv, but I would say strong governments are strong because they're made up of strong people, and strong nations are the reflection of the people in that country. So as all of you demand and step up for what you know needs to be done for your future, for the planet that is the current leadership will leave you this planet with positive and negative things, with the qualities and the power of nature, but also in the things that you're going to be left to have to fix. So I would say that strong nations and strong people have fantastic opportunities to make big differences.
And sure, I'll tell you that it is not just an event, it's a call to act now, because 2 years have already gone by and 8 only remain of decade on restoration and generation restoration. So hopefully these actions will turn into reality and the danger that is looming ahead of us will be avoided. Also, you remember that UNEP envisaged a youth group into the 2021 because it essentially believes that involvement of youth on the ground level is very, very necessary to push things forward, because the youth has the audacity to challenge things. As we grow up, we move from our heart to our head. We become fearful. But this youth, they can challenge anything. But you know what has happened that I personally experienced? The moment this youth group gets into higher positions, in a position of authority, they start ignoring, they start not looking down back. So they become almost inaccessible. And I tell you very frankly, even for this event, I've been able to access all major organizations in the world and get response. It's very difficult to get, apart from some volunteers who are always part of our event, to access these youth groups. So I promise you, through this event and because of UNEP's involvement, I will give the world a strong youth group which is accessible all the time, because people on the ground, their actions need to be highlighted as well. Bigger governments, bigger people, influential people, bigger companies, their actions get highlighted. They're all over social media. They have the resources to do it. So we have created this platform. So even a small action of a school student at some level can be highlighted through this platform. I will now hand over to students. There are two of them. I think, JK sir, can you help me out with these two students? They have each question for Susan, very important questions, and the interaction is very important to me. JK sir, I think it's, I'll just.
Greetings of the day, everyone.
Akshit, you can ask question from ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Greetings of the day, everyone. First of all, ma'am, it's an honor to ask your question, and I was so empowered to listen to your speech. So as a green warrior, my question to you is that, do you believe UN, whereas UNEP, can achieve the Sustainability Development Goals by 2030?
Great question. Well, the UN system, we're here to support member states. So the member states make the decision about what future they want, and they ask us to help them through convening, through bringing information, through helping to give advice. But we are a reflection of the ambition of the governments of the whole world. And so, are we on track to complete the Sustainable Development Goals? No, not right now. And this fall will be a Sustainable Development Summit that the Secretary General is hosting in New York to draw attention to that. The Food Systems Summit just a couple years ago is having a stock take moment this summer in Rome in July. And also to be taking stock of where we are on progress of what we said, what governments said they wanted to do, and how much progress they've achieved. And that's the role of the UN, is to help keep track of what governments want to achieve and the progress they're making, and design the pathways that governments can choose to take to get to the places where they know the world needs to go. So we have more to do, but we still have 7 years. So if we act now, we can really get ourselves much more closer to track. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you, Susan, for using our key phrase. Secretary General also used the word act now in one of his liners quotations. We have been using that. And Barminda.
Yes, sir. A very good morning from India, ma'am. It is an honor to be here with you. Thank you for your pearls of wisdom. Very enlightening speech. Ma'am, my question to you is that the success of ecosystem restoration depends on clear political will, right? So how do you think the United Nations Environmental Program can get its ideas passed through the hardcore walls of those countries that lack the strong political will which we strive for?
Well, part of it is conversations like this one, talking about it. Part of it is showing good information that is important for the governments in terms of their decisions. So we know that when you invest in nature, you actually have returns on that investment that benefit communities, local communities. And so it needs to be part of a development pathway. But governments need that information. So if they understand that they have two choices, they can create jobs in ways that destroy the environment, or they can create jobs that actually has a long-term benefit for the environment, and at the same time will create a whole lot of other co-benefits, then the economics of those decisions begin to shift. So one of the things we're trying to ensure that we're there to support countries with is giving them solutions that make sense for people, as well as the environment and biodiversity, that help reduce climate change, as well as help ensure reduction of pollution, and that are in the best economic and environmental and social interest of the country's development. When you can really make that case well to government and to society, then it makes it easier to make those decisions politically.
Thank you, ma'am. Just one more question before we wrap up.
Barminda, I'm so sorry because I have to interrupt. Susan has only 6 minutes left of her session, and then I want her to see videos which are around 10 to 12 minutes. But Susan, those videos are composed on Beat Plastic Pollution, entirely composed. And we also have a small clipping for last year's conference, which you could not, and Natalia did, only one at now. But before that, I request JK sir to put in a gallery mode. So you'll click a screenshot because these kids are going to frame it up and put in their drawing rooms and living rooms over there. So we'll take the screenshot and we'll play out the videos. Sushan, the videos you watched till the end of it will exceed your session by 6 or 7 minutes, but hopefully you will stay back to see them. And then many, many thanks to UNEP, and I'll be getting in touch with you all over again. So JK sir, put in a gallery mode. Let us take a screenshot. Let us play out the video in the sequence that I gave you.
In a world full of waste, we can't stand down. It's a time to act now, turn things around. Every day, plastic pollution is choking our earth. Sustainable choices now give them birth. We could change, yes we can. New generation take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together we'll find better ways. Imagine all the plastic used just once and thrown away. We can reduce, recycle to create a better day. Act now, make a difference, be the change you want to see. Our planet needs our help for a better world to be. Imagine all the creatures living without plastic waste. No more plastic in our oceans, planet's beauty will embrace. Be the change, yes we can. New generation take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together we'll find better ways. Come on, let's join together and take action. Don't delay. We can make a brighter future for a better world today.
What's gone is gone. Let's move on. Let's move on. What's gone? It's gone. Let's move on. Let's move on. The forest turned into concrete. It's green then complete. The mountainside, the lake beside, the blue river in the folklore. Let us store them all as above, and together we can, together we can. What's gone is gone. Let's move on, let's move on. What's gone, it's gone. Let's move on, let's move on. The mighty ocean, desert sand, the charm of the grassy field. Revive them now, revive them now, is a call of the wild, is a call of the wild. And together we will, together we will. The truthful little canary, the break come to us daily. We will do it together, we will do it together. Together we will, together we will. What's gone is gone. Let's move on, let's move on. What's gone, it's gone. Let's move on, let's move on. What's gone is gone, let's move on. What we still have, let's blind on. We can make peace with nature, a generation really can. Act now, and together we can. Together we can, and together we will. Together we will.
waste, we can't stand down. It's a time to act now, turn things around. Every day, plastic pollution, it's choking our earth. Sustainable choices, now give them birth. Change, yes we can. New generation, take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together we'll find better way. Imagine all the plastic used just once and thrown away. We can reduce, recycle to create a better day. Act now, make a difference, be the change you want to see. Our planet needs our help for a better world to be. Imagine all the creatures living without plastic waste. No more plastic in our oceans, planet's beauty will embrace. Be the change, yes we can. New generation, take a stand. Make a difference every day. Together we'll find better way. Come on, let's join together and take action. Don't delay, we can make a brighter future for a better world today.
So
To Rajiv,
that's the
and I
closure
need
of
Rajiv, I need only
yes.
1 minute, so
Yeah,
I'll
sure, sure.
request everyone to turn on your video so that we can click your photograph screen, and till then you can interact with ma'am. I need only a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, so much. And I have some bad news for you. One of the girls on this panel has been bugging me for last 24 hours. She's targeting to replace you at UNEP in 30 years' time.
I think that would be wonderful, and she can count on my support.
Okay,
Thank you
I
so
won't
much for
disclose the name.
opportunity.
And next
This has
time you
been
are in
wonderful.
India, next time you are in India, New Delhi, you're most welcome. We are very close by, and there's no greater inspiration than being with great personalities. This can guide students. I'm sure there is students who have been in the session, they will turn into climate activists all along their life.
It's fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you, sir. JK, sir, let's know when you have the screenshot, then Susan needs to go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have done it. Thanks a lot, Sushan.
Thank you. Any closing statements you want to make, Susan? Then we close the event.
It's events like this that help to raise awareness about the power of each of you and the need to use your power now. So I encourage you and congratulate you and thank you for these efforts that bring you all together and make a real impact and a real difference for the future we want. Thank you, Ajit.
And in traditional Indian way, all I can say is thank you. Let's call it a day.